artists and the older people in the room, right? The people that actually sing along to the national anthem, and the people like me that just bite their tongue. You know, the people that sang the national anthem when they were little, they sing it with passion. And the next item on the agenda, I would like to invite our true and original host for today, the person that brought us all together, the Executive Director of Center for Inclusion and Social Development, Mr. Folahan Johnson, to give the welcome address. A round of applause for him, please. Please make it. Please keep clapping as he gets on stage.
Good morning, everybody. This perhaps will be the shortest welcome address ever in the history of welcome address. And first, I want to say thank you to everyone for coming, honoring our invitation. And I would also want to say a very special thank you to the Heinrich Böll Foundation team, especially my guy in the room, Ikena. And of course, to my amazing team as well, that's worked tirelessly to put this together. So, why are we here? Like our host said, we are here because of a pressing national issue, and irrespective of personal alignment or wherever side of the divide you might find yourself, we can all agree that the issue of our national debt is something that is quite concerning. And you know, sometime last week I was with some of my colleagues and we were joking, and one of them said, "Oh, that she's a poor person," and we laughed about it. And I told her that you are not poor, because even you that you are a data person, you know that statistically you are not among the poor in Nigeria. And the truth is, we are here today because we are the new elite, and everybody in this room is the hope that the vulnerable Nigerian has, the chance that they have to a better future, the chance that they have to a meaningful life. And one of the things we are going to be exploring today is to look at the true cost of debt. When we discuss debt in Nigeria, you know, we are all specialists, we talk about charts, we talk about figures and all of that. But like I always tell my colleagues that, see, the true cost of debt is the out of school child, the out of school girl. The true cost of debt is that woman that has no business losing her life because of lack of access to basic maternal health care, right? I was telling someone today that, you know, while we were preparing for this, around 3 a.m. liberty to drive 24 hours, I mean, anytime. But in some communities, people can't do that, right? But that's not even the story. So when I got to the place where I was to get what I wanted to buy, I saw a little child. I don't think that boy should be more than 12 years. And he was hailing me. Why? Because he wanted me to give him a stipend. And I asked myself, what does the future hold for this young boy? Does he even know the consequence of the decisions that are being made today? Does he realize that the reason he's begging today is because of the decision that were made a few years ago? And that is the crux of our conversation. The team has put together a report which will be presented later, and I want to welcome all of us to have a very interesting dialogue. Let's contribute and make this a very wholesome company. Thank you, everybody.
And truly, I read the report that we're launching today, and it leaves us with a lot of questions. and for us to also see that we are in a red zone. Sometimes it feels like because it's called national debt and it's not the debt that is attached directly to our names and our bank accounts, feel like it's none of our business. But every issue that we are facing currently, either through health, education, infrastructure, can be directly tied to these issues. So I want us all to think of ourselves today as key stakeholders in thinking about how do we get out of this mess. Thank you. I'm going to be inviting the rep from today's sponsor, if I'll use that word. I want to use that word, sponsor, that made us all get here today, from Heinrich Böll Foundation, the program officer, Mr. Ikenna Donald Ofrego. Please, the program manager, apologies, please welcome him to the project.
Permission from my other, Mr. Joseph. That's Mr. Joseph. Hope the camera can get him. Finished my master's degree from UI, and then one of the persons that I kind of like looked up to, there's several of them. Mr. Joseph was one of them. Mr. Tunde Aremu, Esther Agbo. They are kind of like the people I look at that I know. I remember the first job I got, it was an insurance company. When I got into the place, I first looked at the staffs. When I look at the staffs, I ask myself, is this what I want to look like? And I remember after I got into a particular insurance company, the next day I refused to go to the office. And then I went for my master's degree, came out, got into the NGO space. I still remember Mr. Joseph. Mr. Joseph's project, when he was with Usiwa, under public finance management, I learned a lot under that particular project, and he was actually the manager there. So I want to say thank you for the mentorship. And your boy is still faithful. I follow him every day on WhatsApp. I follow his status, everything about our bishop. I follow him a lot, and he's taught me more than he knows. From personal life to professional life. So, Manga, this is your legacy. And we don't know how much we influence people. And I think that's partly why we're here. The decisions we make, how does it affect the future generation? When Fola was talking about that child, for me, what dropped in my head, the other part I didn't hear, but for me, what dropped in my head was that my children would have to contend with that child. That's what came to my head. My children will have to contend with whatever that child becomes. And it will be in their interest that that child become responsible. If not, our contemporaries are those terrorists we see every day. And we have our leader to my office and he was saying, Ikenna, let's talk about this, let's talk about debt, let's talk about Youth Forge, all of that. And we were able to come to a center when we saw the amount of borrowings that were happening, and we started asking ourselves, what is the true cost of debt? When we borrow money, what exactly are we paying back? Because a lot of time when you see those figures in the news, it just looks like 50 billion. How much does it really cost? How long will it take? We've been borrowing so much money. As at this morning when I checked, Nigeria's debt profile is about 152.39 trillion. In dollars, that's about $99.65 billion. And we're dealing with climate change. What's the relationship between climate change and debt? In 2022, Nigeria dealt with major floods. And those floods affected more than 33 states in Nigeria. Road infrastructures were gone, farmlands were gone, food were gone, and the cost of that particular flood was about 9.12 billion. Climate change has a way of destroying infrastructures. And at the end of the day, who would pay the future generation? I think one of the estimations I was seeing here, by the time they took the figure that was borrowed, used the exchange rates. Right now, our exchange rate is still on the high side. You actually can't borrow money anywhere in any Nigerian bank. As of last week, I was talking to one of the heads of a mortgage bank, and I was saying I would like to borrow some money. And if you have to borrow money, you're talking about where it's good, 4% interest rates. that 4% interest rate is a month. When you multiply that month by the year, you realize that if you try to borrow 10 million naira in Nigeria and you want to pay back in 2 years, you have to pay 19 million times 2. And the guy said, my brother, don't borrow. And I'm like, so why is it so high? And I said, well, you have to ask CBN and the current administration. If the LPR rate is fixed at 27%, how much do you think the bank would give? So all of the money we're trying to amass. Our debt servicing is about 60 to 70%. It has come down from about 80 to 90%. So now about 60 to 70%. When you get that money, you use it to pay Oyibo people back, and then you follow their concession, take all their laws, and by next year we'll be paying lots of taxes. Unfortunately, we're not dealing with the kind of leaders that we can trust whatever they say or their intentions. That's a fact. We cannot trust the system. We cannot trust our politicians. We cannot trust them to do what is right or what is good for us all. Because the system does not allow transparency, does not allow accountability. I don't know the last time we saw audit reports publicly. I don't know the last time we saw any of these things. So transparency and accountability is a big problem. If you're going to get legitimacy in a country where you cannot trust the electoral system, in a country where you cannot trust politicians, in a country where the truth is you may likely get the worst of us leading us, we have to speak. And that's the truth. We have to speak. So while we're having coup and counter coups all over West Africa, we're praying it doesn't come to Nigeria. That work for us. At the end of the day, all of these debts, our children would have to inherit them. Where are the infrastructures? Nigeria has floated a green bond. We floated our green bond 2019, 2020. Do I have somebody keeping time for me because I'm getting into this one? Okay, 10 minutes or 10 seconds. Okay. So we floated our green bond, and I'm happy to see Mojid here. He's one of the journalists that's been doing some investigations around infrastructure and monitoring, who's tracking, who's calling the government to actions, who's building the capacity. Many of us may not know, but there's no capital budget release. I think the only person that seems to be working in my own eyes is Wiki when I see all those roads. The others I can't see and I don't know. Food prices are coming down. But trust me, it's a mirage because a lot of that are food imports. So our farmers are still not going into farms. Our military security votes is still covered, so we don't know when they buy ammunitions, when they don't buy ammunitions. So we don't know what our boys are dealing with. Our road infrastructures, all of them. So everything is highly coded. So I think this meeting and what I'm just trying to say in all of the mix-up and everything I'm trying to say is that nobody is coming to save Nigeria except us. We have to start to get into these issues and do as little as we can. So with these 3 points of mine, I hope I've been able to get us a little bit sober, if not angry. I hope I've been able to call us to do something and act, because at the end of the day, the truth is no place is going to be home. Not Canada, not US, not UK. At some point in time, even abroad, you get to that place where somebody will tell you you don't belong here. This is where we belong, this is our own. And we're going to fix Nigeria by the pen or whatever means. But let's start by talking to each other. We've not said enough. So with these 3 points of mine, I want to thank Fola and his team for putting this together. Trust me, all of this is not HBS. So I want to thank you for going the extra mile to making sure this works. This is the beginning of our partnership. Let's continue to dare and do more. So thank you.
Thank you very much. In the arsenal. And then the issues that we're still ignoring today is still, imagine us having more compound problems in the next 30-35 years. What would it look like? And so that is why we need to think through what the future of our children what they are going to experience. An example, 25, 20, 30 years ago, people could take drives from Lagos to Abuja to Maiduguri. Now we can't do that. Our parents could do that. Now we can't do that. What are we doing now that our children will not be able to do in the next 20, 25 years? Those are the questions we need to start asking ourselves. Thank you very much, Mr. Donald, once again. I would like to invite we are all important, but I'd like to invite some of the people that we have called to come and drive the conversations today to sit on our special chairs. Mr. Joseph Amenao, our keynote speaker, please come to the high table. Mr. Donald as well, please come to the high table. Our representatives from NOA, please. Video messages are going to be given for 5 minutes each. Please join me as I welcome somebody has to answer. Any takers? I can promise that there is gift for interactive people. I don't know what it is. Okay, please. The man in black. Sorry.
Good morning. I think at this rate, any year farther than 10 years behind is better than this one. So the good old days is just throw a stone behind you, and it's better than this one. Thank you.
Okay.
So for me, the good old days that we used to stay in Nigeria is just a reflection of how things have gone worse than what it used to be. I remember growing up, my dad used to listen to one Victor Laya song. I asked him when was this song written or sung. It was in 1966. It was saying, Iluleo Kosowolode. And I remember I was used to sing.
will be hearing from our indefatigable. He was formerly my boss, my mentor. I think he's a mentor to a lot of us in this room. Mr. Joseph Idaosai Amenao. Please, I want to read his bio and I want your clap to overshadow my voice. Joseph Amenao is a seasoned development professional. Please, your clap. With over 20 years of experience. He also civic hive. Please, another round of applause. The organization. The Open Society Initiative for West Africa, Osiwa. Another round of applause for that. His expertise spans strategy development, public policy, advocacy, grant making, and monitoring and evaluation and learning. Mr. Joseph holds a master's degree in international law and diplomacy and a bachelor's in economics with executive training from Harvard Kennedy School and the Institute of Development Studies, SASAS. Now, wait for this. Beyond this professional work, he's an arts enthusiast and poet running the inspirational platform, don'tides.org. So all these titles that we are giving, if you want to glean from his wealth of experience, just go to his website, don'tides.org, DAWNTIDES.org. I promise you, he drops nuggets there every day. Things that you have to pay for consultation, you get it for free. That means Mr. Joseph is not just a leader, he's somebody that gives back, he's somebody with a wealth of knowledge, and he's also a Gen X, a Gen Z boomer. Have you heard of a Gen Z boomer before? Mr. Joseph is a Gen Z boomer. Please help me welcome Mr. Joseph to the stage as he gives his famous speech. A resounding round of applause for him, please. I'm not going to take that. Please continue with the round of applause.
Thank you so very much. We're meant to have a projection, so please, if you can get down. You know that sometimes it's a big challenge when you've been given this type of introduction. You begin to ask yourself, am I that old? But sometimes you can't hide it. And one of the things I used to tease my colleagues at Civic Hive is that someday I'm going to tint my hair, I'm going to have earrings on, and I'll look exactly the way they all look. But just to say that it's been a beautiful journey in this non-profit sector. And I take a lot of lessons from some of the things that Ikenna did say. I recall back then that when I was at CSJ, one of the things that the CSJ was focused on was on the challenges around fiscal sustainability, and particularly working with the Fiscal Responsibility Commission. I remember then we started what we referred to as the Fiscal Responsibility Index. But initially the conversation was to say, let's call out government entities that are not following the Fiscal Responsibility Act, and wanted them to call the index Fiscal Rascality Index. Well, I know that we had that debate at some hotel in Zone 5. But along the line, somebody then told us that, look, you guys can be adversaries of government. If you say Fiscal Rascality Index, there's going to be a lot of backlash, and it will not go well. So I think one of the biggest lessons in the course of my work has been that in engaging government, we have to find ways to make the message get to them. And I think the Fiscal Responsibility Index work at that time did get to the government in several ways. But back to today, I'd like to say that it's a profound honor to stand before you today at this pivotal national stakeholder convening on debt, sustainability and climate finance. I bring greetings from budget and join you in gratitude to the organizers for convening this critical dialogue at a moment when our nation's fiscal trajectory, development ambitions and climate vulnerabilities are intersecting perhaps more perilously than ever before. Today's theme, the cost of debt crisis, is not just a technical framing. It is a moral and existential challenge. It demands that we ask, people who are interested in Nigeria and the future of Nigeria should ask, what is Nigeria really paying for with its growing debt? And equally important, what are we not paying for? In the course of the presentations made by Ikena Folau, we did again hover around what was our current debt. So if you do a snapshot of Nigeria's debt reality, you find out that at this time, even with all the rebasing that we've done, we are hovering around 379.17 trillion. And that's really scary in a number of ways. The thing here is to say that these numbers are alarming, not simply because they are large, they matter because each naira borrowed represents a claim now or in the future on Nigeria's capacity and on the lives and futures of ordinary citizens. What is the major problem? Please, if you can do the slides, please. It doesn't seem to be moving. We've gone past this. Let's go to the core problem. The core problem does seem that I've been hearing it for so long. Every time the national budget is pushed out, or every time there's a new government, there's always that whole thing about diversification. But instead we see borrowing mainly used for recurrent expenditure rather than transformative capital projects. We see the weak linkage between low that do not correspond with national priorities, minimal accountability in project execution. The result is debt without development, a cycle where the burden grows but the benefits do not. This is the core thesis today. Nigeria has amassed what we can refer to as like debt without building the systems, infrastructure, and protection that young people, climate vulnerable communities, and the broader economy urgently needs. Now, the other dimension to this conversation, which is very critical, is to talk about the impact on youth. A generation borrowed but not invested in. And I know that in the course of the presentation made earlier too, the speakers did again allude to the fact that young people don't seem to understand what these debts and loans are being accrued for. And it takes me back to when I was younger. In 1985, forgive me, I was 16 years old in 1985. In 1985, I was 16 years old. But in 1983, I was about 14 years old. Then the government of Lagos State then was led by the late Lateef Jakonde. Lateef Jakonde at that time began what we referred to, we had this idea about what is referred to as the metro line. He wanted to do this rail project in the entirety of Lagos State. As a kid then, because even at that time, I agreed, a lot of us have argued that let's go back to when the good old days. In 1983, you can imagine we still had challenges with traffic in Lagos. So there's really technically no real good old days to go back to. We just have good memories of how we enjoyed our times. That's how I look at it. But just to say then, Jack only had this beautiful idea about the metro line. And at that time, the exchange rate, naira to the dollar was 1.5 naira to $1. What Nigeria needed at that time, or the agreement that Nigeria had gone into with the entities that were going to help it undertake the metro line project, we needed only just 700 million naira. Let us sink 700 million naira in 1983. That was all that was needed to ensure that that project went through, and it was going to be for 2 years. The idea was to build rail lines that would. But then, the eve of 1983, there was a coup led by the late President Muhammadu Buhari. He then became president. And 2 years later, for reasons best known to the government then, the whole idea of the metro line was quashed. It was cancelled. The argument was that Nigeria could not pay the 10% startup fund, which was then about 70 million naira. So somehow Lagos State, because they had gone into agreement with the organizers of the project, had to then pay that money as some type of debt. So if you look back now, that time it was 70 million naira. It was equivalent to like $70 million or $78 million. My question would then be to myself, did I eventually become part of those who paid that debt by virtue of being a resident of Lagos State? And my parents also paying taxes. Are we in any way still paying any of those things? So I'm trying to say that young people, we don't have a sense of what debt means to us. The only things we see is that some of the things that government has projected it will do with debt is not happening. The metro line never happened. Back to the whole idea of metro line. If you go to Lagos now, there's the running through Lagos State, from Marina to and also from Yaba to other parts of Agege, the federal government running from Lagos to Ibadan. So the thing is that people want to see the tangible impact of debt. That is used in the NGO war. We constantly talk about the youth bulge, and that's the same conversation you have the entirety of the sub-region. That West Africa itself is largely made of young people. The question then is that how much our governments was how much are young people themselves focusing on some of the issues that relates to them. So the question then goes as Nigeria continues to borrow, the opportunity cost grows. For every naira spent servicing debt, a naira not spent on building tomorrow's workforce, for every loan that remains unaccounted for, a potential generation of youth is left behind. Let that sink. For every loan that remains unaccounted for, a potential generation of youth is left behind. In effect, Nigeria is accumulating debt for the future. Still, the Nigeria that most young people will inherit is one where capacity. Politics rather than data often drives capital project selection, needs assessment, or long-term planning. So we find out that we are beginning to have challenges in this regard, and monitoring and regulation are weak or absent. What gets borrowed is not always what gets delivered. What gets delivered is not always maintained. We know clearly that as a country, we seem to have a big challenge with maintenance. And if you go to some of the states, you figure out that some of the big projects, in terms of maintenance, there are challenges around that. This is how debt, instead of powering financing. Let us try and reimagine debt as a development capital. People have argued everywhere that there is absolutely nothing wrong in using debt financing for development. But the biggest challenge is, how do we manage this debt properly? If borrowing must continue, then let it be done with discipline, foresight, and effective targeting. Debt must be aligned with strategic investments that yield long-term value for all Nigerians, especially the youth and climate vulnerable communities. We must continue to emphasize the importance of ensuring that our debt solutions are linked to the challenges of young people. Because while I was also growing up, we kept on hearing that the youth are the future of tomorrow. And to a great extent, we've seen that because of the way we've expanded as a country, population-wise, we have more young people at this time. And clearly, they will form the bulk of the future. Among priority areas for debt finance investment, there are key things that we must then focus on if we're going to reimagine debt as a form of development capital. Youth development and empowerment, skill-up vocational and technical training, building modern vocational centers, digital skills hubs, apprentice-to-job pipelines. Invest in tertiary education, research and innovation, and support youth entrepreneurship. I think like 2 years back, one organization, I'm not sure exactly which organization that was, began then to look at the future of work in Africa, and they listed 10 most important jobs in the next few years. The question is that on a national level, are we projecting ourselves to prepare our young people to have those jobs? Especially in this era of the conversation around the expanding forms of embrace the dimensions that this can bring. Build youth-friendly infrastructure. Terminal and I have been teasing that we here appears to be a place that lacks strong digital connectivity. Wetland Hotel, for instance, I don't know, maybe it's because of the way it's built, there seems to be a challenge with regards to good digital connectivity there. But yet the question here is that we find out that our young people are beginning to embrace digital related types of jobs. How much of our investments driven by debt are we using that to improve digital infrastructure in Nigeria? Climate adaptation and resilience infrastructure. We need to build flood control infrastructure, coastal protection works, irrigation and water harvesting systems. We need to invest in renewable energy and off-grid solutions for rural and peri-urban areas. We need to support climate-smart agriculture to safeguard life, food security and rural resilience. Productive infrastructure for sustainable growth. We need to improve transport corridors, urban planning, sanitation, water systems, and industrial zones. Infrastructure that supports economic diversification. Again, economic diversification, less reliance on oil, more on agriculture, manufacturing services, and the green economy. We need to emphasize transparency, governance, and public financial management, strengthen procurement processes, ensure rigorous project appraisal, selection, monitoring, and evaluation, institutionalize public reporting on debt finance projects accessible to citizens, engage citizens, especially youth, in oversight budgeting and decision making, leverage climate finance and debt for development swaps, blend occasional climate finance, grant concessional loans with public borrowing to reduce the burden of domestic revenue, negotiate favorable terms that prioritize long-term resilience, not for short-term consumption. In all this, we must then narrow down to what we can refer to as call to action for all stakeholders. So the question will then be, everyone we seated here. Folau has a description of everyone we seated here. Say you are he says we are the elites. So if you are well, we must then decide what we're going to use our collective privileges, our collective opportunities to do to change the challenges that we've reeled out here. To all stakeholders gathered here, government, civil society, development partners, youth groups, or fail to build. So let's not necessarily focus on how much we owe. Let us now ask the question, what we have built or failed to build. So for instance, it would be good to see, for instance, significant and important. We then have to also demand strategic alignment. The biggest project in my view for now is the coastal road. And you all know clearly what the controversy around the financing for that. I'm not sure we pushed hard enough to get clarity on how we are financing that. Perhaps it's an opportunity for us as a collective to again demand clarity from government. How are we financing this? You all know clearly what that whole conversation turned out to be between the minister and one of the TV hosts when he was pushing for clarity on the cost per kilometer. We must promote transparency and accountability. Each loan must be traceable, each project verifiable, each outcome measurable and accessible to citizens. Ensure youth and community participation. Decisions on debt finance projects should include those whose lives will be affected, especially young Nigerians and climate vulnerable communities. How many of you young Nigerians would like to be interested in understanding what project government is thinking about when it's looking at debt financing options? If you want to be interested, I think it would be good again to pull your resources together as a collective to partner with groups like CISD on how you can again use their platform to engage government in regards to these issues. The other thing is for us to leverage climate finance wisely, seek grants, concessional funding, innovative financing mechanisms, and offset mechanisms, not just more debt. As we try to conclude, let us again re-emphasize this. Debt is not in itself a sin. The fact that you're borrowing is not a sin. Borrowing can and should be a tool for transformation. You know, also in our personal life, we all get around to borrow money once in a while. You either take advances from your office or you go get a loan from a bank. But then the question would be, but in Nigeria today, borrowing has become a burden borne by future generations, while the promised benefits remain elusive. The thing here is for us to find ways to ensure that we are not borrowing now to create a burden for children yet unborn. The actual cost of our debt is not fully captured in naira or dollars. It is visible in the unemployment of our youth. Like I did explain, in 1983, for instance, I thought that if the government had gotten its act together, the challenges of traffic in Lagos at that time would have been dealt with if the metro line was completed. In terms of how that has impacted the rest of us, we don't have a way of looking at it, but we all know that in Lagos we kept on suffering and we still suffer the impact of traffic, of long hours in traffic. If you do an analysis of how that is impacting the health of Nigerians, perhaps again you can see the true cost of debt that were not acquired properly. The actual cost of our debt is not fully captured in naira or dollars. It is visible in the unemployment of our youth, the vulnerability of our communities to climate disasters, the dilapidated infrastructure, the underinvested schools, and the empty promise of development. If we continue on this path, borrowing without building, spending without impact, owing without investing, we may end up wealthier in debt and poorer in future. So for instance, our debt communities, an empowered and skilled youth, and a diversified economy. We can make debt a bridge to Nigeria's future, not a burden. We can make debt a bridge to Nigeria's future, not a burden. It is time for transparency, accountability, ambition, and justice. I thank you all for listening, and I wish us all an exciting and amazing
To give a round of applause. I'm sorry. Please. Thank you very much, Joseph. I took down some notes, and I want us to know the people that were listening or the people that were pressing their phone or the people that were thinking. So please, can one or two people tell me one or two things that stood out for them from what he said? Me, I'm going to say something, and please, nobody should say that's what they wanted to say. The first is that we have a crisis of priorities, we have a crisis of governance, and we have a crisis of vision. As there's a lot to unpack from that, but that's a discussion for another time. Any hands? I'm going to thank you.
All right, I think it's still morning. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
So while he was speaking, I took some notes, and the summary of what I took would be crisis of priority and crisis of governance. That's what debt is. And debt should be used as a development capital.
It's not always what gets delivered. And also, another one is what gets borrowed. It's not what you pay back. Sometimes you might pay times 5 for what gets borrowed back. One more person. Yes, please.
Alright, so for me, what stood out, what we borrow should be used for.
take one last person. Executive power, give her. No, give her. Thank you.
Good
Okay,
morning,
she has
everyone.
Thank you, everyone. One thing that we have also said that I saw is, and when I read the report, is that we are actually borrowing, and most of our borrowing is also going into recurrent expenditure, which is illegal. It's a crime under the Fiscal Responsibility Act. Thank God there's somebody here from the FRC. And so you see that we are borrowing, but we are borrowing to pay salaries, borrowing for overheads. It's I also wanted to say something. That was when Mr. Donald was saying something about the audit reports, that when last the audit reports released. The last audit report I went through in detail was the 2020 audit report, and I think it was released late 2023. And I can never forget one thing I saw inside the audit report. So you know how the audit report is, it's like at the end you are reading a conversation. After they've prepared, somebody at the MDA has prepared the report, somebody at the audit office would give their comments, then you read the response. So there was, at the audit office put a comment that, oh, this personnel cost jumped from, I think, 20 million to 200 million naira this year. What happened and all that. And then the response from that particular MDA was that it was in black and white. We had so many personnel burials this year. That is why this and this. And I had to read it like 4 times to be sure that my eyes were not deceiving me. That you used over 200 million for personnel burials. How many people died in the agency? Is it a burial company? So, and these are the things that our debts are funding. You look through the nitty-gritty of it, and then you see that the debts are also being accumulated in an illegal manner. It's supposed to be approved by the National Assembly, but our president will have done his own before sending to the National Assembly, and then there's a lot to discuss, and that's why I'm happy to anticipate the 2 panel sessions that we are going to be having. But before the panel session, we're going to be launching the policy report now, and I would please implore everybody to read the report, share the nuggets they're getting from it, and tell other people to read the report, and give media houses to also shout through the rules. There are a lot of nuggets in the report, and the team at CISD have done a wonderful job bringing that together. Going to that, I'll be introducing the person that is going to launch the report, consultant with the CISD team, Mr. Job Olaniyan. Please, a round of applause. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone, once again. Yeah, today I'm very happy and excited to be in your midst, and I want to use this opportunity to appreciate everyone that has actually contributed in one way or the other regarding the production of the report. So to start with, I'm just going to give us a little snapshot of the whole entire report. Yeah, it's very, we all know that Nigeria debt is actually at a critical condition.
And also to start with, there's a need for us to ask ourselves some critical questions. Some critical questions, actually, there's a need for us to answer those critical questions. And the first question we need to ask ourselves is, how do we get here and why are we here? So I'm going to take us across three major metrics that actually define the current debt landscape of Nigeria.
not supposed to be. He's not seeing this device. He's not seeing this device. I'm not seeing this purely from him.
And also, the debt issue has also have a lot of effects on the climate, which is leading to what we call a drought, erosion leading to the washing away of farmlands, leading to the displacement of people and actually property. And the last impact is what we call the psychological effects. What we've seen here is a picture of some students writing the exam, I think some few months ago. And what they are doing here is very, very actually bad. And one of the cause of this is because we need to pay back, there's no money to do what's actually needful. And the psychology effect of this is, in the next few years, these people are also going to be in charge of one office or the other. They will think that this is actually normal. So they are the set of people that they will come out that you guys are even trying. During our time, we wrote exam without lights. So it's just like we are building a mindset. We are actually cultivating and building a mindset in which we have to make sure that stops. In conclusion, I would like to say that these are beyond numbers. These are actually real impacts affecting the masses. And we all have one contribution or the other to actually make sure things are well done in the right manner. We can't say that because I'm not in position of power, I can't do this, I can't do that. But we have the power to educate people, to make sure that we can change people's mindsets. And if we can do that, definitely, if people have the needed knowledge, definitely we know that we are breeding a set of new people that can actually change and affect things. Because of things like the picture I also showed of recent, because of the things people has actually passed through, it has actually formed a mindset which is actually not helping what we have now. So we all have impact to play to make sure that Nigeria is a better place and our economy is growing the way we want it and the way it should be as a giant of Africa. So I would say, let's do our part to make Nigeria great again. Thank you, everyone. God bless Nigeria. God bless CISD, and God bless everyone.
Thank you so much. Please don't leave. I think we have to take pictures with the report now and launch it. May I invite all our key... I'm sorry, I can't see what you are doing. Thank you. May I invite all our key people to come to the podium or the stage while we launch the report and take pictures. First, our host for today, our executive host, Mr. Folan Johnson, our keynote speaker, Mr. Joseph Amena, Mr. Ado Azan, Mr. Sodiq, Mr. Edidiong. Please keep coming. Our panelists also, please, let's all come. Mrs. Yanuti, Mr. Toby, Oyenka Chinyere, Mr. Abdul Karim, Mr. Stanley, Mr. Mojid, everybody, Mrs. Damilola, everybody that is a panelist, please, let's all come. And Mr. Ike, I saved the best for the last now. Mr. Ike, not too many men. Sir? Yes, please. Dedicate it in the name of...
Okay. On behalf of the board members and staff of Center for Inclusive Social Development, we present this report to the public, and we encourage everybody to read through, not just as another report, but as a guide to action. Everything that has been presented and every conversation that will be had today is to equip us with adequate information on the real situation of things and to provide guidance on what we can do as individuals to contribute to present this to the public. Thank you.
Report to President Tinubu for him to read. I'll give the person my 6-month salary. And you will show me with evidence, Miss President Tinubu holding it, opening it, and reading it. Let's discuss in camera. Thank you, everyone. I would assume, please, if we can get it to President Tinubu, let's get it to everybody. Our friends, our sisters, our exes, our enemies. Everybody needs to read it. Thank you. And now to the time we have all been waiting for. Maybe not all of us, but some of us have been waiting for. I can't wait to hear the discussion on the panel. So we're starting our first panel now. And I'll be calling out all our panelists. We have our moderator, Mr. Stanley Achonu. Please, a round of applause for him as he comes on the stage. Next is Mr. Sodiq Olofin from the Nigeria. Go. Please, a round of applause as he comes on stage. It's an all-man panel. Sponsor, Mr. Ikenna Donald Ofegu. Please, a round of applause. Very much.
It's still morning. I wanted to be sure. Good morning, everyone. Thanks again for joining us. I'm sure you know we've had very interesting conversations so far, and I agree with our MC. It's not right in this age to have an all-man panel, and I hope we can course correct in future. And I'm sure members of this panel agree with that. So, I'm Mr. Joseph. We're here today because 3 crises are colliding in Nigeria, and they are all connected. The first one is the debt crisis, which we have been talking a lot about. Revenue on debt servicing. Nigeria spends 73% of our federal. That leaves almost nothing for anything else. And at 100 naira, you use 73 naira 50 kobo to pay those you are owing, and then you are left with only 26 naira 50 kobo for every other thing you need to do. I'm sure you agree that that's not sustainable. The second crisis we face is the climate one. Nigeria needs about $330 billion for climate action between 2026 and 2035. So we need to mobilize on an average 67 billion domestically, $67 billion domestically every year. But how can we do that when debt service has consumed everything we have? When floods devastate 64% of our population, we cannot even afford climate adaptation precisely when we need it the most. The third one is our youth and gender crisis. Only 5.1% of the federal budget goes to health. Our maternal mortality rate stands at 1 in 66 lifetime risk. 18.3 million children are out of school, and who knows when this was measured. 73% of young children cannot read. The debt isn't an abstract number. It is a deferred tax on our youth, especially girls, whose future we are mortgaging with our current borrowing. So this report that has just been launched examines some of these issues in detail, but critically it asks some very important questions. Who pays the debt? Whose future is being sacrificed? And what are we doing about it? It's not an issue for experts alone. It's about survival. It's about opportunity. It is about whether Nigeria's next generation inherits a future at all. And there are some key numbers that has been highlighted. The gravity of what we face. The data can't be argued with. As of today, the total public debt stands at 144.67 trillion naira. When I first saw this number, I wanted to call Falan and say, are you sure I'm not making a mistake? But the numbers are real. This is up from the 97 trillion it was just by the end of Q4, by the end of 2023. So it's almost close to doubling in size. The other key number that I wanted us to be aware of is that 65% of the state debt owed by the government is foreign dominated, exposing states to exchange rate volatility, and they cannot control that. And among seven, there are 5 states that are most at risk: Lagos, Kaduna, Edo, Rivers. Lagos, Kaduna, Edo, Rivers, and Ogun account for almost half. Of our national of clear dangers to the future of our young ones. So I want to start with the representative of the chairman of FIR. Do we stop using fiscal debt service as a fiscal management tool? Because at the moment you use the debt ratio as a fiscal chokehold on us. How do we recognize and reverse what we're clearly at a tipping point where we don't have to get to 90% before we then start to think about how to re-strategize and develop new tools for managing our debts?
Okay, thank you very much. I think first and foremost, I want you to understand the role of Fiscal Responsibility Commission in public management system before I now dive into the questions. You know, in Fiscal Responsibility Commission is an organization that have a responsibility of ensuring compliance with the prohibition of Fiscal Responsibility Act 2007, and further ensure that all government finances are undertaken on prudent. So issue of 73.5% relations to make sure that debt sustainability is within the sustainable limit. So the debt service to revenue exceeding 50%. Number 2, debt service to GDP ratio increasing in trend. That one is also an alarming. Then persistent increase in fiscal deficit to GDP is also another point of concern. Then finally, increasing reliance on external borrowing. So all these factors are factors that showing a red alarm that which we supposed to act or draw the attention of the responsible agents that supposed to make debt sustainable within the countries. So, but in doing that, there is some revising tippings that we're supposed to consider and adopt. There are one, fiscal consolidation, also improve on tax and also tax administration. Then number two, debt management. There is an exploring with concessional loan amortization. There is need for any government of the federation that desires to borrow must ensure that the loan amortization period and a reasonable interest rate. Number three, there is an economic diversification. There is need for economic diversification to revise this tipping by promoting non-oil sectors improvement, improve business environment and attract investors. Then number four, there should be an institutional reforms that all these public management institutions, there is a response that's supposed to be that which is going to be effective and efficient in curbing debt risings in the country and bringing policies that at least control the rising of debt. Then finally, growth-oriented policies. There should be a growth-oriented policies that improve infrastructures in human capital. That is, in education or sectors, there is a policy that is going to improve on that section. So I think that's what we have in that regards. Thank you.
All right. I'm happy that the last point you made is related to the institutional frameworks that need to be in place. And that leads me to the next question. I'll come to you, Mr. Sadiq, which is related to the institutional failures, which the report clearly, number one is the mess that we inherited from the central bank, when the fiscal management and the ways and means, which at some point got up to 22 trillion, which the government then secularized by turning into a long-term debt. And then there was this too, is more addressable through policy reform. The ways and means challenge that we face, and what specific intervention do you think can help? And this is that we face. And what specific intervention do you think can help? And this is in the line of how we manage our institutions.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, first of all, I would like to comment on the way we perceive that, and Mr. Joseph mentioned it clearly when he was making his presentation, talking about, and the way we have approached it over the years, we have clearly displayed that we are not strategic about it. We have not been strategic about it, and as a result, we are in this situation where all of the debt we have acquired, there has not been a repayment plan, as it were, and coupled with the escalation that came with the COVID-19 and all of that, the government borrowed money to fund recurrent expenditure and all of that. So I feel the narrative should start from, like it ended, the narrative is about how do we get the best of the debt that we have acquired, and what are the strategies, the framework that we can adequately spend on, as you have mentioned. One institution coming up, it's into problem for us. We have so many institutions, so many duplicated institutions doing practically the same thing, all in the bid of, we want to institutionalize. But the main problem for me is not the institution. Nigeria has institutions. There are so many institutions here and there doing one thing or the other. We have the federal, Fiscal Responsibility Commission doing so many things. We have so many aspects of the Constitution trying to address one issue or the other. The issue is the political economy of this country that supports the effectiveness of this institution. So many provisions. The deficit must not be more than 5% of GDP. We have the ways and means must not be more than 5% of previous year's revenue. What we have done over the years, do they follow the law? You know, so many other provisions that we have had. These are not as a result of failure of institution, but they are a result of the political economic culture that decide to cripple institutions such that institutions are not working. And these are results of the way we bring people on board in all of these institutions. They are not based on merit, so to say. People come in through politicians, and you know, the politicians have turned all our institutions to appendage of their political party. So any government of the day makes all of the institutions do the bidding of the political party as against the bidding of development. So coming to the securitization and exchange rate. Securitization as it's than economic. So the politician, we have in this regard, we must give him credit for some of those things. On coming in, he securitized all of what we had. It used to be 2023 and what we have now. So politically, the government can commit to what the Constitution says. And we have sanity in that area. But on the second part of it, which has to do with exchange rate, as much as we want to that space sane compared to what we experienced over the past 10 years, however, our ability to sustain that does not rely so much on the CBN, because a lot of people feel the CBN needs to be doing all of these adjustments. It goes a long way into how we are able to improve our productivity, you know, reduce what we are importing, and increase what we are exporting to the international market via the non-oil sector. And you can see practically what just Dangote alone was able to do to our currency within the past year. With Dangote alone, petroleum imports used to be like about 40% of what we import. But with Dangote alone, we have reduced that to nearly 10%. And that is the reason why you are seeing the stability we are seeing today. So if we continue in that trajectory, the government spending, we see the government attracting investment into the economy, encouraging investors, and doing several other investments to boost productivity in the economy, boost non-oil exports. We feel that a lot of things we continue to see improvement in this regard.
And it's also very important because they are independent for this reason, for moments when politicians want to push the boundary, and for when the public need experts to say, no, you can't go beyond this, and which was some of the failures we saw with Ways and Means. So sustaining our ability to just hold those independent agencies to their responsibility, it would be key to sort of dealing with these institutional failures. Ikenna was nodding his head as we talked about these institutional challenges, and there are very many. But I wanted us to talk about how climate plays a role in this our debt crisis. As I highlighted, we need about $330 billion between 2026 and 2020 if we want to sort of confront the challenge that we face. If debt continues to consume 70% of our total revenue, where will this $60 billion we need to tackle issues to fix our borrowing priorities?
So that's the problem when you're nodding. Okay, so I think the first question where you talked about political will, the interconnection with climate change and all of that, I think Doc has already said a whole lot of it. How come, sir? So I think for me, it's actually looking at the worst case scenario. If we continue with all of the mismanagement, poor political economics, what's the worst case scenario? And what part does climate change play in all of this? Today, I mean, when the whole conflict started, insecurity, the first narrative was around climate change, farmer header clashes, the Lake Chad is drying up, the pastoralists don't have access to water, they have to move southwards. Climate change is shrinking the available space we have, basically. Not just space in terms of access to resource, access to food, even human space. Urbanization, it's largely increasing. Insecurity is also increasing. 2022, the flooding that happened in Nigeria, over 33 states were affected. Dead bodies were uprooted. Roads were off the road. So it's as good as, let's assume that we've borrowed too much money in the past and we put this money in infrastructures. These infrastructures, a lot of them were washed away during the flooding. A lot of disaster came in. Food insecurity was also threatened, and we're still dealing with that up till today. So it complicates the entire issue. And the reason why it's worse for a country like Nigeria, it's also because of that. For me, number one is poor political reasoning. I would tell everybody that, the richest and most powerful people in Nigeria seems to be the most desperate and wretched. The thinking of that, how do you describe somebody that has so much money and wants to have 1,000 billion estates? Like, there's something wrong upstairs, So political leadership, it's a big problem in Nigeria. And then once you have leaders that don't care, it spoils everything. And recently, I've been trying to ask myself, what is it that brings change in Nigeria? At least now we know Donald Trump is one of them. Yeah, when you call Donald Trump, National Assembly will suddenly become responsible and they start to want to act right. Because what it simply tells you is that it's sad, but the system is not designed to work. And if we don't address those systemic, we have good laws. Implementation is the problem, but who would implement it? It goes back to the politicians. Is that not so? So let's use the word right-thinking politician in Nigeria, because the right-thinking politician in Nigeria is designed to steal as much as he can. He's designed to make sure that institutions like Fiscal Responsibility Commission would not work. He's designed to have a system that would not check him, because his simple goal in that 4 years is steal as much as he can. It's political. But we've come to, I say something that we never suffer rich. Nigeria still need to suffer. We still need to see, we need to get to that point where, because if we throw this issue online, and as I'm speaking now, the next comment you'll see, the person will first check my name. Igbo boy, na Igbo boy. Do you understand? And the next will say, oh, he's Christian. So for a people that think that way, it means you never suffer rich. So we see the whole level of insecurity. We're still debating if we should have state police. We're still talking about, we still need to keep security votes. We need to keep everything secret. We don't need disclosure. We still have senators who will tell you, let him just take a bow and walk away with the crisis. So it tells you a lot about the kind of people we are. So climate change makes this situation more for us. And we talked about institutions. There are lots of financing, out there. Climate finance fund, a lot of them that Nigeria is not scratching. A lot of countries are taking advantage of lots of climate finance fund, green fund, and the rest of them. But Nigeria is not building enough in terms of our human capacity to access a lot of this international funding. We know also that a lot of the international institutions like IMF, World Bank, they are also a big part of the problem. Because the debtor, there's nothing wrong in borrowing. But you see, when you have somebody who's an irresponsible borrower, you don't have those type of friends. You know, say this friend, once you give her money, Niger bets don't set. Once you give her money, don't go drink. He's an irresponsible debtor. But you would always give him without checking your own condition. So it's not rational. So this is why, while we're talking about, the issue of debt management, we also need to look at international communities like IMF, World Bank, and the rest of them. And so for people in the room, how do we also make our voice heard internationally? Because locally, our voice don't mean anything except Donald Trump speaks, or except World Bank speaks. And a lot of these banks, whether it's World Bank, whether it's IMF, they are business people. They are not different from REM money, all those microfinance banks you see in Nigeria that will give you money and tell you monthly interest rate. They are not different from them.
their goal is to make profits. Their goal is to keep you indebted. It is the benefits of the debtor. We used to say that, look, the debtor is a slave. So as long as we continue to be indebted in a system where people can still take money outside, they are still the one that keep all the loot. So it's in their best interest that we remain indebted. The conditions of this debt are not favorable. And that's why there are also global climates, global discussions and movements around how do we ensure that international borrowing and international institutions are also justiciable. The loan conditions, why can't we get these loans in Naira? Because it is the exchange rate that causes the problem. So we need to also start to call international communities, IMF, World Bank. If you're going to give us money in Naira. So we don't have to worry about the exchange rate that suddenly balloons everything. So it's a whole lot of gumots, lots of debt. And it's sad that those that are supposed to call for this justice system, those that are supposed to drive the implementation of good policies, are not doing it because they enjoy from the rot. And we need to also, as young generations, Gen Zs and the rest of them, how do we show that picture of the worst case scenario? What's the worst case scenario if we continue to borrow like this? If we continue to mismanage debt this way? If we continue to make our institutions this weak? If we continue like this, continue to do elections the way we want to do it, continue to mess up the courts the way we want to do it, the worst case scenario, you cannot imagine. But Nigeria will be worse off than all of the countries you're seeing all of the coup. Because what we'll see is, let's not even say it.
And it's interesting how you have laid out how the misgovernance that we were in is leading to some of expansion of some of these challenges. Mojid you are basically on the field and you go out there and you talk to Nigerians and you report and cover some of these issues. I want to use the 2022 flood, which was very devastating. Report says, affected almost 64% of the population, and you can extrapolate when you look at the number of states that was ravaged during that particular flood. It affected almost 95% of farming households and had an adverse effect on harvest. This report argues that our failure to invest in climate adaptation, prevention, and all of those could have mitigated these losses if we took action and if we were investing right. How do you think we can quantify, based on your experience as a reporter who covers some of these issues, how can we quantify the economic cost of our failure to do things like climate adaptation in favor of spending 70% of our revenue on debt servicing?
Thank you so much for the question. Yeah. Thank you so much for the question. First and foremost, I want to say a big thank you to the Center for Inclusive Social Development for the invitation and for me to share or to speak on something I'm so passionate about. Like you rightly said, I'm a reporter with Premium Times, and as you all know, we basically do accountability journalism. Many people don't like it when you call a spade, but it is what it is. I love the fact that the keynote, the person who delivered, Mr. Joseph, who delivered the keynote address. I think one of my major take-home here was the fact that he said, we can make debt a bridge to Nigeria's future, not a burden. So back to your question regarding the flooding in 2022. I think we've had back-to-back flood disaster from 2022 even to last year and even this year. The truth is that because many of us, we don't visit some of these rural communities as often as we should. It is only when things go south that we travel to these communities and then we see firsthand the level of damages. But in 2022, I was privileged to witness some of these, when you are reporting disaster first, you report it when it breaks, that we have flooding about over 26 of Nigeria's 36 states, were deluged. Farmers, infrastructures, businesses crumbled. Farmland swept away and the likes. And then, when the water receded, please visit the communities again to see what has happened, the impact, what even triggered it. We saw the Meduguri incident too last year when. But from my own observation, especially when we're talking about climate change issues, you see them talk about adaptation, mitigation, and also climate financing. Nigeria has very sweet nationally determined contribution documents, if you ask me. And every time I read through the document, I see, can we just even implement 2% of what is enshrined in that document submitted to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change? To cut long story short, the main reason why Nigeria was flooded in 2022, yes, we have heavy rainfall. The rainfall pattern, according to data of, from NIMET, you see that it has increased over the years. So by the time you look at the trend, and we see that we have our rainfall pattern has changed. Sometimes when farmers are expecting rainfall, they don't get rainfall. You see heat wave and the likes. And when they plant, maybe when we have the first rainfall, they go rush to plant, and then there's heat wave. You see that all the crops will dry up. That has its own effect on our food security. So by the time now they are, let's say they want to harvest, we now have abundance of rainfall. Many of the farmers affected in 2022, I think about 2 weeks for them to harvest, that was when the water came. And trust me, in rural communities where we grow these crops, where we grow these commodities, many of them are being transported to places where we need them. So at that point, when they harvest, at peak harvest, some of them want to ship it, maybe to Port Harcourt, or Lagos and the likes. But you don't have anything to ship. Many of them borrowed money for them to cultivate, but they don't have anything to show as the output of their hard, labor over the years. But this is simply because we fail to put the necessary infrastructures that we need to do in order. When we have abundance of rainfall, most of the rivers, River Niger, River Benue, and the likes, they are silted. And as water is flowing from the dam, some we blame it on Lagdo Dam release and all of that. We were supposed to create, is it a buffer dam or something, up in Adama, but that was not done for years. We were supposed to do integrity tests on our dams across the country, but monies were voted for this. Trust me, after the disaster happened, the president directed that they should carry out integrity tests on the dams across the country. Have we seen the report yet? No. And most times we only react. But what do? By next year, when we have abundance of rainfall, it will still happen again. Because those rainfall, the rainfall flow, the river flow, they are still silted. We are yet to desilt them. And when rain falls, what happens? The water flows into surrounding communities. The tributaries, all are silted. Then back to even our own self. We have a situation whereby even ourselves, we throw waste along the drainages. When I visited Meduguri, we said, yes, we had flooding. But trust me, I looked through the gutters across the metropolitan city of Meduguri. They are all clogged. So tell me, where will the water flow to? So it behoves on us as government, as people, at least self-discipline. I travel across the country. You look at the street, we take photos, poor, because they are clean. You cannot eat and just dump something on this. But in Nigeria, everything goes. I think I will just leave it there.
And I think that 2 points that you have made. One is even our ability to sort of manage what we have, things like doing integrity tests on our existing dams, are things that misgovernance is preventing us from doing, but also the political will to do it, because if a presidential order is ignored, then it shows the scale of the challenge we have. And then also the need for us to individually hold ourselves to account as being part of the problem that we face, especially with some of these climate challenges that we are talking about. But I think, in summary, money is still at the center of it, even if it's our ability to build preventive measures or to sort of do early warning systems that sort of alert communities about pending danger, or even have an emergency process of evacuation. All of this will cost money. And considering how tight our fiscal space is, even near being choked out from being able to finance some of these solutions that are clearly staring us in the face, we are still having to talk about where will the financing come from. And I wanted to come to Mr. Sodiq and back to our conversation around CBN. We've talked about ways and means and how it has posed its own challenge. But there's a new challenge that also some of the reforms coming from CBN is now presenting, which is the monetary policy rate, which CBN is continuing to tighten as part of inflationary measure control and economic management efforts. Interest rate payment on domestic debt surged from 1.8 trillion in 2020 to 5.6 trillion, driven by higher MPR rates, currently at 27%. Is Nigeria's monetary policy, the tightening of monetary policy, indirectly making debt servicing unsustainable, at least the local component of the debt? Should this be a part of consideration for the Monetary Policy Committee when they are setting exchange rates? Interest rates.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. Maybe I don't want to make it a culture that I try to speak on what someone talk about. But I want to say one opinion about the way Nigeria borrows, and especially when we talk about the IMF and the World Bank. These people had actually done a lot in terms of institutional framework to help Nigeria spend wisely. Many of the World Bank loans that we have today, they're actually project-tied loan, where disbursement are based on performance of some of those loans. Likewise, we have many of the states' fiscal framework, blah, 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 that just expired, I think, last year or so, or this year. Is a product of World Bank intervention, trying to make sure that Nigerian government is doing well with fiscal policy. It's just, so maybe, I don't want to call it a, what's the language they use for, what do they call it? It escaped my mind. Conspiracy theory or misconception as it were. There was a time when I think it was Christine Lagarde that said it, that at the World Bank and IMF, when African countries are coming to borrow money, within 2 weeks, the whole deal is done. But when the Chinese are coming to borrow money, 12 months, they are still negotiating. No, this thing is not in line with what we want in our economy. But African countries, within 2 weeks, they are done. Bring the paper, let us sign, get the money, and go. Same IMF, the same World Bank, African countries are facing, that Nigeria is facing, is the same World Bank that China is facing. It's the same World Bank that Malaysia is facing. The same World Bank that Singapore is facing. And these guys are they are even borrowing way more than Nigeria is borrowing from the IMF and World Bank. Nigeria is not borrowing too much. It's just because of our inability to spend wisely. That's why our debt is becoming a problem. Debt to GDP, depending on the number you are using, based on the rebased GDP, is less than 40%. Japan is doing 236%. So if Nigeria would do 236%, maybe the whole of the country would have burned down. So just to set the context around that, it's not necessary. It's our problem. It's our political economic culture not to be transparent in what we do. I don't want to say corrupt, but it's our problem. So coming to the issue of interest, except for recently that we see a correlation between MPR and what is happening in terms of government borrowing and what we are seeing in terms of borrowing, businesses borrowing in the capital markets. tradition over the past 10 to 15 years, Nigeria's MPC has a very weak linkage to other monetary indicators in the economy. Just recently, where the whole height became so huge, where we have about over 10 percentage point increase. That's when we are seeing, oh, this thing is moving in the same direction. But before, they don't move in the same direction. There are times where the yields on bond and treasury bill is way, way lower than MPC. And there are times where yields on these government securities are way higher than MPC. So what determines the yield paid by the government is not MPC, as far as Nigeria is concerned, or maybe over the past 15 years. It's not MPC. MPC, as far as I'm concerned, maybe recently they become very effective. It's just a routine that we cannot stop doing. What determines what the government pays as interest is a function of the economy, what investors perceive about your economy, and they put premium on what is possible in the US. So for example, in the US, you pay 5% interest. You get 5% on US government bond. So if I bring my money from US to Nigeria, Nigerians who are investing in the US. So if I have to bring my money to Nigeria, they factor in inflation. What's the inflation doing in the country? They look at exchange rate. If I bring my money into this country, if I want to bring it out next year or next 2 years or next 5 years, how much will it be? And the reality is that if you bring your money from other countries, bring it to Nigeria, you invest it at certain dollar rate. By the time you want to bring it out in the next 5 years, you are most likely going to get something lower out of it. So as a result, investors are pricing in risk into the interest rate that the government is offering. And you will see that with recent improvements in the economy, in the macro space, inflation is coming down, now 16%. Exchange rate has been stable over the years. You see that the yield has started coming down. As at December, it was around 20% average on FGM bond. It was around 26, 27% on treasury bill. We're going to look at what they are today. They started coming down. On bond, the average is, I guess, the average for all maturity should be less than 15%. So that's a reflection of you getting your macro right. Once you get your macro right, investors will adjust. A lot of the time, we want to blame the world for being wicked to Africans, but Africans too are not showing that seriousness that, oh, we can do things right by ourselves. And that's what we saw in all of these other East Asian countries. They are doing things right by themselves, and they are being competitive in any room they enter. So that's what we need to do, and that is actually where the problem is. Get your system right. When you get it right, you'll be competitive to negotiate cheaper rates in the market.
And essentially, the market is adjusting, and that will eventually get to the point of stability where it evens out, price out risk, and then we can see lower rates affecting. There are two things you said that just refreshed my memory. In my former life, when I was country director of one campaign, we were collaborating with the World Bank to host the summit of the heads of state on the International Development Association Replenishment 21. The idea is the fund where Nigeria mostly borrows from, which is where low-income countries borrow from. The rates are lower. And we're in Nairobi for that summit of heads of state. About 20 African heads of states were in attendance. But we had pre-meetings with World Bank officials. And I remember what you said, one of the senior guys from the World Bank in a room with some of the younger people we had gathered from African countries, talking about the process of, explaining how World Bank goes about loaning to African countries. And he made this point, he clarified this point you made about how long it takes these other countries to borrow versus how long it takes African countries to borrow. But he told one story, and this is not a shade to the civil servants in the room. But he told one story. He said, when they gather for these negotiations, the delegations from countries come with prepared speech. They read it, they tune out until it gets to the point of Where do I sign? Right? They make no argument. They don't debate. They don't question nothing. That prepared speech they leave from their state capitals that has been signed off by their bosses is the beginning and the end of the negotiation. But you see the Chinese, you don't see anybody older than 40 in the room. They are all young, smart people. And they will be there from morning to night. They can go through that process for 3 months every day. Every line of that loan agreement will be discussed and questioned. World Bank must explain themselves. You don't get that from here because when it comes to going to Washington to negotiate, we are thinking about per diem, right? We're not thinking about our ability to get the most for the country. And I see my guy from FRC is itching to say something, but I will let you say something, but we also to ask you this question. The act setting up your commission says that the capital expenditure and human development project should basically form the basis of all borrowing. That's what the act clearly says. Restricts all borrowing to capital projects and human capital development projects. Yet there are evidence that shows that we're increasingly borrowing to cover things like recurrent expenditure. Why has the regulatory breach gone unchallenged by your commission? Is it because there's no way you can deal with this, or you don't have the enforcement mechanism to ensure that government is complying by the rules set by the National Assembly?
Hello, thank you, Mr. Moderator, for these questions. You know, as earlier said, Fiscal Responsibility Commission is a commission that is responsible to ensuring compliance with the provisions of Fiscal Responsibility Act 2007. By the provisions of Part 9 and 10 of the Fiscal Responsibility Commission, specifically Section 41 down to 47, it's spelled out that any government agencies desires to borrow must borrow for capital expenditures or human development, and also prepare a cost-benefit analysis detailing the social and economic activities that they wanted to embark. We in the Fiscal Responsibility Commission, we are trying as much as we could to ensure that that particular sections of the provisions is duly complied by the agencies of government. Because really, as you said, all debts or all borrowed must be for capital or human development. But there are some instances that maybe during the verification exercise conducted by the commissions, we noticed that there are some breaches of that particular sections. But we drawn the attentions of the affected agencies to be fully comply with the provisions. But we are facing some challenges, though we are still working on it. Lack of adequate sanctions, particularly for the breaches, because we notice that maybe agencies or officers in charge of any responsibilities, they don't duly comply with the provisions provided by the Fiscal Responsibility Commission because of the lack of sanctions. But recently, we have signed an MOU pending when our FRA amendment. We have signed an MOU with the anti-corruption agencies, EFC and ICPC. But any person that we found wanting in respect of our violation of our act, we are going to duly take off from that. Thank you, sir.
And I know we're out of time, but this is also very important, as you agree. So, in the absence of this sanction, you talked about cost-benefit analysis that must be produced. Who does the cost-benefit analysis report go to? And why is the public not privy to that document before Nigeria goes ahead with borrowing? Because I think where the laws do not have sanction mechanism. Maybe public mobilization can support the work of the commission to pressure government to do what is right. So why is who gets the report of the cost benefit analysis, and why is public not privy to that information before Nigeria goes ahead with borrowing? Yes.
Thank you. By the provisions of Section 44, which requires that any agencies that requires to borrow must provide that cost benefit analysis. Though during our verification exercise, we noticed that there are some cost benefit analysis prepared by the states, which is not on standard. And we are expecting that that cost benefit analysis should send to Fiscal Responsibility Commission. When we now look at it, that when it is okay, then we now give them go ahead to borrow. Then we have to look at all these provisions that the borrowing must be for capital and human development. So all these things, we're expecting that cost benefit analysis to involve that. But recently, we are working on producing a standard template that we are going to call the relevant stakeholders to look at it and agreed on. Then we now share it to the relevant stakeholders for compliance. Thank you.
So the second part of the question is, why is this report not being made available to the public? Sorry, please just indulge, because I'm sure that you'll be interested in understanding this. Why is the public not involved in this process?
As I said, when we are done with the template, we are going to call a relevant stakeholders to look at it and review it and agree with on it.
You can help.
Okay.
Oga can help. I think the
sorry, I think what you're asking is the cost benefit analysis before borrowing. Am I right?
Yes, sir.
Yes, from your question is very relevant because most times Nigerians don't know when approval is given, it's already given for borrowing. We, about 2 weeks ago, not up to 3 weeks, were involved in a series of programs with IMF, DMO, and some other relevant stakeholders. Even, I think BPP and infrastructure concessionary agents, they were all involved. We asked from fiscal response, we raised some key issues. And DMO answered very well too, that if you check that the budget is being prepared now, you find out that inside the budget, there are issues of borrowings. But hardly can you find any Nigerian to look at that budget, either as a bill or even as a law, to know that in between it, there are a lot of borrowing to be made. You hardly find even civil society groups raising such issues at that point. The only time we wake up to talk about borrowing is when government is about to actualize it. But at that point, it has become law. Am I communicating? Even in the budget that is coming, if you check, and that is why Section 51 of Fiscal Responsibility Act has provided that every citizen of the country, so long as you're a Nigerian, you can ask questions on anything relating to Fiscal Responsibility Act 2007. And the budget, the MTEF, they are all emanating from FRA, because MTEF, which is the foundation of the budget, emanates from. So you can ask questions on both the MTEF and the budget. I'm sure you would have read that I think Federal Executive Council just passed the MTEF, and nobody will take note. No, you hardly find any citizen, except maybe for the civil society, Center for Social. I'm not I'm not saying and I'm not condemning any, but most people will not make comments, except for Center for Social Justice. You'll find him analyzing and talking about both the MTF and the budget. Yes, others comment too, but they are not strong enough to it, because the moment the appropriation becomes, the bill becomes a law, it is now a law. Even the DMO, Fiscal Responsibility Commission, can do little or nothing about it. It's already law. Because most of the borrowings are there in the budget. You know, there was a time they said, is it the youth or Nigerians are lazy? Is it the youth? Is that what they said? Because I looked at here, true cost of debt, youth, climate change, and Nigerian development. You see, when people make public comments, it should be an institutional challenge to everybody. They said youths are lazy. It behoves on us as Nigerians and the youths, because I still believe I'm a youth. Hello, somebody? Oh, yes. If we stand aside, we don't look at the budget, we don't talk about it, when we now hear about borrowing, we just wake up from our slumber. One more thing. The FRA also mandates for proof of compliance. The proof of compliance should be obtained from Fiscal Responsibility Commission, the Operators of Fiscal Responsibility Act. Almost the 3 tiers of government are always in violation of obtaining a proof of. Proof of compliance is when the commission cannot check whether these borrowings are in compliance or the stated, whether the cost-benefit analysis are there, whether the borrowing is at a very good rate, whether it is for the purpose it is meant. In our checks, we found some states, they now develop their own proof of compliance. Their state FRA will go and sign it off. State fiscal will sign off. For meanwhile, the writing is the federal fiscal responsibility. But that is not where we are. What we are saying is, if the youths really want to take their country, we should wake up. That statement that youths are lazy in Nigeria, if you check it very, it may not be completely false. Because the law, no, I'm saying it as a youth. If we stand up and watch, the budget is presented, you won't discuss the bill. As a youth, we are busy endorsing people, clapping, even nuns, with due respect. Most of the, even student organizations, we are busy clapping. I'm telling you, I'm speaking from my heart, because I believe I'm a youth. Yes. Why can't we ask questions, salient questions? We are busy giving awards. Some of these awards, sometimes when I sit back and watch it, I say, what are these awards really meant to? So, if we cannot ask serious questions through ups and challenge, the law, Fiscal Rule Section 51 says you can ask questions, you can even go to court. CSJ have gone to court and won 2 cases against the federal government based on law. So for me, the real cost of borrowing can be said to be poverty. It can be insecurity. It can be no hope for tomorrow. I am of the opinion that a lot of funds still reside within agencies, government-owned enterprises, that if we really work, if we really collaborate, a lot of funds can be raised within. A lot more can be done inside. Government can really, if the agencies created that are running most of government businesses really come together, that government can have funds to run. And yes, Even America borrow. We can borrow. But we must borrow when it becomes absolutely necessary. My opinion is that we should begin to interrogate whatever we do.
Yeah.
We should interrogate our platforms when issues come up. If you ask questions, our leaders may not be as reckless as we think. A lot of our leaders may not want their name to be called out. But because we sit back, a lot of things go under us. So my own thought is that the youth should take their future in their own hand. Because if you don't take it, nobody, I'm telling you the truth, nobody will give it to you. I don't want to say it again. I don't want to reiterate that word I was saying that our youths are. But if you ask me, we are proving that saying very, very right. We spend more time doing things we shouldn't be doing, honoring people, giving out award, clapping, when we should be busy interrogating seriously things that will mean and secure our tomorrow. Thank you.
I think we are way over time, and thank you, sir, for the clarification. Yes, indeed, for the intervention. And I think that the points are clear from this last tail end of the conversation is that we need to ask more questions. We need to actively involve the public. So, Folahan and team, there is a lot of FOI to be written, to ask questions about where are these assessment reports, where are these projections of what you hope to achieve. The course of action is very clear, and I hope that we can act on it. In closing, I have you have to pick one from my panelists. I just need you to pick one. I'm going to list 3 things. Just pick one as closing thought. The report that was launched proposed 3 pillars of reform that can help us overcome this challenge. 3 pillars. And I want you to pick one. If you were charged with implementing, what would be number 1? So I'll list the 3. You have the opportunity to pick one. The number 1 is revenue mobilization. The number 2 is expenditure prioritization. And number 3 is enhanced debt management. So which one would be your short-term number 1 priority if you were tasked with sort of helping us overcome this fiscal challenge that we face? I'll start with
Okay, thank you very much. So in my opinion, they are all important, and we need to start working on them. But the most important thing for now, and that will make the other things materialize properly in the future, is expenditure prioritization. Around the way we spend, budget padding, inflation of projects. The minister was I heard in the news, was it 2 days ago or yesterday? They are trying to look into all the projects all the contract that has been awarded over the past 25 years. Contracts that are supposed to be 100 million, they are calling it 700 billion. We also have to look at the current government too. You want to renovate the Third Mainland Bridge at 3 trillion. You are doing Lagos Calabar at about 11 billion. That $11 billion, so tantamount to about 16 trillion naira. I mean, these are the issues. Projects that are not supposed to be more than 10 naira, you see them making it 20 naira. So if we are getting the best from what we are spending, our debt, our future debt will be sustainable.
Okay, let me just jump at it. I agree completely with him. The issue of expenditure, and that's where
one.
Yeah, the expenditure per se. I think we are wasteful, in quotes. When this man was presenting the data, I really love the way he broke it down for us to really know what it means, because most times as youth we don't get to really understand it when they are quoting this percentage, these figures. We don't get to know how it affects us. Sorry to digress, but still within context. I know we are out of time. For instance, the green bond Mr. Ronald mentioned. When the green bond was issued, the first in 2017 and also in 2019, I think they've issued the third, but details are still sketchy. Many people don't really know what the green bond is, but my focus there was to see how was proceeds, because it's borrowing, it's debt. How was the proceed used to implement afforestation project across the country? And it was poor. Trees that are supposed to be planted, basic infrastructure that are supposed to be done across these sites were poorly implemented. So the moment we get this money, and they are saying that this money, the green bonds were oversubscribed. Now it was oversubscribed, then the money what you are using it to do was apparently they eat it. And when you ask questions, like he said, and someone was telling me that I will track you, I will kill you. When you ask questions, they refuse to answer. When you ask questions, they see you like you are intimidated, but you are asking the right questions. You are telling them that you didn't do this and this and this. And that is why whenever we go to the negotiation table, like you mentioned, I cover most of these negotiations, like the COP. I was in Switzerland recently for the plastic treaty. And when you ask for our delegation, what are we bringing to the table? What is they will be telling you that you don't have that mandate. You don't have that effrontery to ask them that question. Just imagine what the head of your own delegation will be telling you. Is that right? So you now say the youths, they are I don't travel across the country and tell me that Nigerian youths are lazy. It's a lie. They are not lazy.
So there are three options.
Okay.
Revenue mobilization, expenditure prioritization, and enhanced debt management tool. Which one would be your number one priority?
Okay, I think let me pick enhanced debt management.
Okay.
You know, by enhancing the debt management processes, it could broken the cycle of debt accumulation. By one, debt sustainability indicators. By observing those indicators, number one indicator should be debt to GDP ratio should be less than 40%. Then number two, debt service to revenue also should be less than 30%. Then decrease in external debt to export. It also helps to broken this debt accumulation. Then secondly, fiscal transparency and accountability by decreasing the fiscal deficit on annual budget. Number two, transparency in budgeting. Our budgeting fully transparent. Then thirdly, effective management and public debt. Those things, if is effectively managed, it's definitely going to broken the cycle, this accumulation of debt. Thank you very much.
I just want to clarify something he said in case you missed it. The current debt service ratio is 50%. The current threshold is 50%. Nigeria exceeded it. At 2023, we're at 73%. He's saying we should lower it to 30. I just wanted you to clarify, right? So that you understand. We already exceeded, the benchmark at the moment is 50. We're at 70. But he's calling for an effective and enhanced debt management tool will require us lowering that threshold so that we don't exceed 30%. So first, our challenge is clear. We need to even come down to the current limit and then trend downwards. I just wanted to provide that clarification. Ikenna, what would be your own option?
I think I would, everything is really correct on points, but I think I would also go with management, and it's basically all of the subsets you mentioned, accountability, transparency, but I will add sanction. In Nigeria, there's no imperative, so people misbehave. So there must be sanction. We need to see people go to jail. We need to flog people, you know, especially public servants and politicians. We need to see people go to jail live, you know. So if we don't have sanction, every other thing is a waste of time, you know. So let's see the Fiscal Responsibility Act. Let's see that bill passed. Let us see full transparency in terms of openness. Let us see the ministries. Let's see their budget allocation. Let's see contractors. Let everything be open. Audit reports. Let us see audit reports public in Nigeria. We don't see audit reports. They said if they make it public, the prison will not be enough. So, but let's have all of this. Let's start with owning the lights.
Yes.
In Nigeria, darkness strives so much, but let's start with just on the light. And it's going to start from the leadership, and that's where I put my full stop.
I thank you again. So for me, I have three numbers I want you to go away with, which is some of the last things that were said. Our debt service to revenue ratio currently stands at 73%. The law says it should be 50%. Our panelists think it should be 30%. So I think you have the numbers to go home with. 73% current, 50% current threshold, 30% should be the new threshold. I think the numbers are clear and we can start to work towards that. Again, I want to say a big thank you to our panelists for indulging us, and thank you everyone for participating.
Stand for pictures. Photographer. Pictures. Yeah, good pictures. Okay. So while we are waiting for the photographer, please let's welcome somebody very important in our midst. We have already seen him. Some of us have disagreed with what he said, that youths are lazy. While some people agree, but he's the chairman of the Fiscal Responsibility Commission, Barrister Victor Muraco. Please, let's give him a round of applause. Thank you, sir, for joining us today. Please, who believes that Nigerian youths are lazy? Show of hands. Immediately you show hands. I'll just tell the organizers, please collect everything that you have that is entitled to them today. Thank you. So we have been talking for so long. It's time for us to have a bit of entertainment break. It's not entertainment per se, but it's still for us to be able to reflect on the things that we have said today. And so we'll be going to spoken words titled The Future We Borrow. Can we have one house, please? One house, please. Thank you. Spoken words, The Future We Borrow by Favor Ukachi. Okay, before we do the spoken words, I would like to invite the chairman of the Fiscal Responsibility Commission. He has given us some gems before. He is about to give us goodwill messages and some gems. And we respectfully disagree that we are lazy. Please, let's welcome Barrister Victor Muraco.
Thank you. I want to sincerely appreciate the organizers of this program, Heinrich Böll Foundation, and I think budget is also involved, and other agencies, groups, civil society groups that are here. I salute you. I bring you goodwill from management and staff of Fiscal Responsibility Commission. We salute you particularly because today is World Anti-Corruption Day. Yes. I want to inform you that my reverberating the question whether the youths are lazy, I didn't say that. I wouldn't say that, but I'm asking you. It's a sarcastic, I wanted to remind you that this was said before. If you are called a name and you don't, I'm an activist in a way, although I'm in government, but I believe that we should wake up. Even the citizens of Nigeria should wake up. Asking questions is the best way. In fact, that's the only way we can get it right. When you hear noises outside and you begin to shut your doors and windows and bring in all your children inside, you are not helping. When you hear noises outside, you can open the door, go outside, look out and know what the problem is. If it's something you can help, you participate. You can speak up. Because shutting your door without asking question cannot help you. You are, in fact, you're supporting the wrong that is going on outside. I want to inform you that as a proactive step today, I think at exactly 10:05 a.m., we signed a memorandum of understanding with ICPC today. I and the chairman, our two management, we signed memorandum of understanding. Why do we have to do that? To mark the Anti-Corruption Day. It's very important because we noticed that in our law, Fiscal Responsibility Act number 31 of 2007, there are a lot of loopholes. There are no sanctions. We have been using rule-based, we've been using naming and shaming, we've been using different strategies to operate the law. Out of 51 offenses, no sanction at all. It's not like we want people to go to jail or to be locked up or to be flogged, but for any misdeed, there must be a sanction. Do you agree with me? But the law we're operating doesn't have one single sanction. I think that action was deliberate. It was deliberate to strip down all the powers of the commission. So we are now working with other anti-corruption agencies like ICPC, EFCC, so that we'll keep sending them most of cases we cannot pursue to a conclusive end. The moderator raised issues about borrowing. There should be consequences. There should be consequences if you borrow wrongly. But today, the law that guides borrowing, there's no consequence. Not one. Am I communicating? These are key areas I believe that we should ask questions. We have continuously pursued amendment of that law. But as we speak, it has not come to fruition. So today, I want to say that we are part of you. We will continue to do our best to even stop corruption from happening, because it's easier to stop it from happening. If you know that the fund you want to borrow is not going to be used for what it is meant for, why borrow that fund? That is what the law is meant to do. I want to use this opportunity to thank all of you, to say that the struggle to stabilize our economy is not just for those in government alone. It's for all of us. Your voice must be heard. Let's continue to push, whether you're in government or outside. Let us think about our youths, our children, our generation unborn. Because one day they will ask questions, what we did. For me, I can tell you, I am doing my own, notwithstanding that we work for the system. Within the system, we are doing our own. As a youth, what are you doing? Is it finding those, list of those you give award and collect some chua-chua? Are you busy organizing groups that will go and pay solidarity so that you can receive some? I believe that the future is in our hand for us to take it. I stand with you, the youth. I stand for our country. I stand for our macroeconomic stability. And I believe that together we shall lift our nation high. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you very much, sir. Please, a round of applause for him. Now, inviting Favor Okachi for the spoken words, The Future We Borrow. Please, let's pay attention and soak in the message. Thank you. Please, a round of applause for her.
Thank you very much. We are the leaders of tomorrow. Yet you indebt our future to the hands of those who care less. Please explain how the gift a baby gets its debts like an asset, not even enjoyed by his parents, but because of the government. Explain how I'm owing without borrowing, but because I'm a citizen, being an indigene now feels like a curse. debt and inheritance to brag about. Please reverse it, repay it, give accountability. We need transparency. Give us results. We are tired of the false assurances that will do this and that, yet no success we see, same pictures every day, no improvement in it. Like it's trade by barter, you trade our future for currency in disguise of development, yet no changes in our societies. Lack of social amenities, poor standard of living, inadequate public infrastructures. When will our change come? When will our dream Nigeria become reality? When will the hope of Nigeria no longer lie on loans but development? When will the hope of Nigeria no longer lie on loans but development? This is Nigeria, our homeland. This is our dreamland, our motherland, our nation in constant motion with rapid growth. So help Nigeria, because our nation excessively blessed with oil and gas, solid minerals, creative minds, rich in cocoa and oil. This is the land where we are blessed, blessed than the nations we borrow from. So uphold Nigeria. Each time we pledge to Nigeria to be faithful, loyal, and honest, to defend her unity, to uphold her honor and glory. So uphold her future, uphold her people, give accountability. Where are the billions borrowed going to? Who does it benefit? Is it the nation or the government? What is it used for? Is it for self, paying of salaries, or the nation? Involve me, involve us. Let us know, see, feel, and enjoy it. We are asking for responsible governance that will discontinue irresponsible borrowing. We are asking for integrity and probity as to where the loan goes. We want responsiveness and effectiveness in your governance. We need transparency. We need to know what is borrowed and where it goes. Because some children are still suffering malnutrition, poor education, inadequate public infrastructures. Some children are still suffering. Insecurity has become an issue of concern. We are the leaders of tomorrow. So free us from the tag of debt. Save us. Save our future. Free us from the tag. Jesus paid our debt on the Christ already, so free us. Free us. We need freedom. Our hands are not tied, our voices are loud. Do not enslave us to China or trade our future to the World Bank. We are the leaders of tomorrow. In essence, we are asking for responsible governance. We are asking for transparency, accountability, and inclusion. We are asking for changes in our societies. We are asking for a developed Nigeria. Save our future. Just save our future. Thank you.
Please, another resounding round of applause for Favor. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. As she said, Jesus has paid it all on the cross. I don't know why I have more debts to my name. Now we are going to the youth-focused panel session, and we would like to discuss this issue, this thematic area, from the angle of the youth. So I'll be inviting my fellow panelists. Please join me as I welcome Oludamilola Onemano. Thank you. Mr. Ayodeji Oluwatobi. I don't know if Mr. Praise Emehihi. Sorry, you'd have to correct me on that. Okay. And then the last person, Mrs. Yanuti Duna. and my humble self, Ayomide Ladipo, as the moderator. Please clap for me now. Sorry, Mr. Praise, you have to. What's the correct pronunciation?
Okay, sorry. The name is Emeriri, so it's R-I-R-I.
Emeriri, thank you. Apologies for that. So, let's start what we have come into the room to do. A popular musician said, "Let's start what we have come into the room to do." So, my first question is a very interesting question. It's going to Damilola Onimano. And also, I'm asking her because I know that she grew up in Kaduna, so it fits the question. So, Damilola, it says, imagine a 15-year-old girl in rural Kaduna comes up to you and asks you, why should I pay for debts my generation didn't create? And this report frames this debt as intergenerational justice. What would you say to her? And looking to 2030, what does success actually look like for your generation? It's also a very important thing because it's like you wake up one day and your father dies, and then they come knocking on your door that your father owed 50 million. You have to now pay it now that he's dead. And you'll be asking, it is not me that borrowed it. Why should I pay? Why am I in debt? But that's the situation, that's the exact situation that we have found ourselves today. We are paying for the sins of our previous public officials that mismanaged our resources. So what do we tell our next generation when they ask us this question, that why are they the ones mortgaging their future based on our current mistakes?
All right, thank you very much, and I'm grateful to be here. So, in Kaduna, I would want to say, for a girl or I look back to myself 15 years ago and say, why am I paying for the debts? Or maybe 15 years ago, I wouldn't even have known how much of debt we had, because at that level of reasoning or at that level of thinking, I don't know as much of what I know now. So at that level, I would want some form of education to understand not just the basics of economics, not just the basics of governance that they teach us in school, but also the intricacies of how governance works. A 15-year-old can come up to you and say, oh, why am I paying for a debt I did not collect, or why am I paying for a mistake? But you shouldn't have to, right? And how you pay is not necessarily because of taxes. A 15-year-old is paying for debt in terms of the low infrastructural development, especially in terms of schooling, the poor availability of teachers, or the teacher absenteeism, of them not being able to attend classes. We saw the picture of the presenter of the report that showed us students reading with torchlights in classrooms and all of that. Those are ways in which they pay for debts that they did not accumulate. And in the next 5, 6, 7, 8 years, we're looking at debt and we're saying, oh, that 15-year-old will look at it and say, at 20 years old now, what is supposed to be the difference, right? What is supposed to be things that have been done better? It will be that we need to make debt speak in capital development. We need to make debt speak in infrastructural development. We need to make debt speak in educational attainment. I, as a 15-year-old girl, I want to be able to go to school knowing fully well that enrollment issues have been addressed. Enrollment issues in terms of, classrooms are available, students are able to walk a very short distance. You can imagine students walking an hour, 2 hours before they get to any available school within their communities. Students are able to walk short distances. Learning materials are made available. Students are also able to learn according to the standards with which their peers in advanced countries can learn. Because at the level we are in now, we are no longer on a what we can't say we are not on a level playing field again, because technology has made it such that we can all compete on the same ground. But then we are always at a disadvantage in Nigeria because of the opportunities or the issues that have not been opportunities that have not been given to us, or the issues that have not been addressed. So you find out that a primary one student cannot read and cannot comprehend and cannot articulate as well as a primary one student in another country. A primary one student is not as advanced in technology or as savvy in technology as a primary one student in another country. But whereas we are competing for almost the same remote jobs across the world, right? So what sets us apart is being able to compete and be on that level playing field. And how we can get there is ensuring that whatever debt we accumulate now does not hinder or hamper the future that we have in the next 5, 6, 7, 8 years.
Thank you so much, Damilola. Thank you so much. And it brings me to my next question, which also highlights. There's a report that says 73% of children between 7 to 10 today are unable to read. And it's very staggering numbers, because that means if you put 10 children in this room who are between 7 to 10, 7 of them cannot read. What does our future look like? And it says the world has left us behind. Then in the next 10, 15 years, those children would also either have fallen through the cracks, or the ones that struggle to make it will be trying to compete for jobs, for opportunities with global giants. Now, I'm going to Mrs. Dunat, which brings this. And we also have a situation whereby it's just around 8% that is allocated to education, and then utilization is even lesser when you look further down. What does this debt burden actually mean for this generation, and how should young people engage with fiscal debates? How can young people be actually how can they participate in these discussions in a way that they understand what it means for their lives? And what exactly can we do? Because also sometimes when we say that youths are not participating, youths are lazy, it's a bit of how people don't know exactly how and exactly what do we need to do. So what are the steps that the youth can take to take charge of this problem?
Okay, thank you very much. I'll start with the youth are lazy. You know, I'll take it in the context that he tried to take it. He said Nigerian youth are lazy based on inability to seek information. Now, there's the lack of interest for those that have access, but there's also that inability for the few. Okay, these ones are, the ratio we have is for the 7 to 10. They are quite young, but the fact that they can't read is already a serious disadvantage. Now, when we even look at the 11 and maybe up to 25, we see quite a number too that cannot read. Now, we have a lot of Nigerians in that age range too that don't even understand anything about governance except when it's time for election, and then they come and tell them one or two things or give them a few nairas, and then they are asked to just queue up and vote. And they don't even know what to expect from the people they are voting into power. Now, when we when we talk about engaging the youth, first and foremost, we need to sensitize, especially the grassroots. We need to go to communities. Talking about youth, it doesn't have to be just like a small, the small population that is in the urban areas. We have to go down to the communities. We have to make them understand that they need to understand everything about governance. They need to understand that, okay, this government is taking in money that is money that you're going to keep paying for, and they are supposed to put some certain things in place. So they have to sit down and understand, okay, what are these things that are supposed to be put in place? Where is this money coming from? How much is supposed to go out? How are they disbursing it? Now, the most important thing is engaging them first by educating them. They have to know what all these things entail. They have to know what they should expect growing up. But the most important thing, this education, I think it has to be a serious issue. We have to make the education, maybe ministry, accountable. Let's see the move, or the state governments, let's see the move in making education better. Let's push. We see NGOs trying to push these children into schools. So let's see the government too pushing these children into schools. I think I've covered. Thank you.
I'm not sure I'm a youth anymore. So I'm going to praise now, and now drilling down to climate. Nigeria needs $67 billion in the next 10 years to actually effectively handle its climate issues, and that's in domestic financing, not to talk of the other external interventions. And then we have a country whereby even the main social drivers of health, education, we are barely getting 5 to 8% allocation. And I'm wondering where climate is going to get anything from. But it is a critical issue, because as of the 2022 floods, like Mojida said, every year we have flooding. And this is not just flooding. I think maybe also sometimes when we say flooding, what comes to our head is just water submerging our homes, then it goes down. Flooding means people will die, people will lose their livelihoods. A lot of disasters will happen. And this is recurrent. And it gets worse every year. So what are the ways that we can get the government to actually pay attention to climate financing? And then how can they even achieve that with the current debt service? And what role can young people play in advocating for climate financing? Because we still have that thing where a lot of people are saying climate should just be on the back burner. We have critical issues like health, like education, but everything intersects and everything is interwoven. How do we get that mindset to change, and how do we get the government to pay attention to climate? Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much for the opportunity. First off, I think I'm personally of the belief that knowledge is power, and our environment shapes who we are as people. So first off, when I mean knowledge is power, I feel like going back down to the youths, we talk about how they need to be more involved in climate and in depth knowledgeability and likes. But it all goes back to like what she said, talking about educating the grassroots. The average young person in Nigeria does not have an idea what climate change is all about. They don't know what climate change is about. And if you look at, it links to education, because if you go back to what she said about how only 8% of our budget is allocated to educating young people. From the global stage, the benchmark for it is about 20%. So there's supposed to be a 20% spend on education because of how important it is. So how do you expect young people to clamor for climate finance and climate change and how we should save our communities and save our environment when they have no idea what climate change is all about and what climate financing can do? So first off, I feel like there should be an education and enlightening problem first. That should first of all be solved. We should focus on enlightening and educating our youth. Awareness should be the first point of call. You cannot, I don't think you can solve a problem without knowing about it. And there should also be some form of care. A lot of us are oblivious to what climate change can do and how it can ruin our future and our parent communities and the likes. If you don't care about a problem, you cannot fix it. The reason why our government continues to ignore us time and time again and focus on themselves is because they lack empathy. When you see videos of people dying from flooding and likes, and there's no shift. As far as it's not affecting you, as far as it's not affecting you, you don't care about it. You just look at it and you just scroll past, and you're like, oh, this is not affecting me and my immediate families, and that's what it breeds. So there's some form of lack of care, first off, from the heads of our government, and I feel like it has spanned down to us as citizens. So now we are all focused on ourselves as citizens and how our parent communities are feeling, how our friends, families. If everybody's okay, that means our lives are okay. So we are first of all out of touch with reality. First off, we don't know what people are facing in underserved communities. we have to remember that there are still IDP camps that are still, what's the word again? They are still functioning, rather. IDP camps of how many years, 10 years ago, are still functioning till now. And it all goes back to the form of care. You cannot solve a problem. If you look at climate finance enthusiasts abroad, they live this thing, and they care about it. They care about the environment, they care about the greenery, and they care about pushing for green projects, organic projects, and the likes. But in Nigeria, everybody probably just see it as a money grab scheme. Even though I know that there are climate finance enthusiasts, I've probably met a few, but I know that there are a couple of authentic ones. But I honestly don't believe them 100%, because I feel like it's a form of, okay, I have knowledge on this particular field, so how do I get best out of it? And it's a field that, like you said, is not paid attention to. In a country where education that's supposed to be really important is constantly ignored, how do you expect them to come and start talking about climate change and climate financing? Nobody's going to answer you. If you go to the government and you talk about, we are not finished solving immediate problems, infrastructure. In the big 2025, a new government or a new president is coming to come and what's the word again? Construct. They are coming to not commission, rather, not construct. They are coming to like vie for an election, and they are using education and campaign. Thank you so much. They are using education and building of roads as a form of way to lobby people to vote for them. In big 2025, Nigeria is over 6 decades old. Over 6 decades old, and these are major problems that we are still facing. So if we have not dealt with immediate problems, talking about education and the likes, how on earth do you want to come and start talking about climate? So I beg to differ.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And you said it that the first is awareness. We need to up awareness to let people know that this is a priority, both the people and the government. I'm going to Ayodeji now, and this time I'm talking about health. Nigeria's maternal mortality rate is something that really bothers me, because it's basically 1 in 66 women die during childbirth. So if you have 130 people in this room, and we were 130 women, and we're trying to give birth, most likely two out of us will die. And that is staggering numbers, because in the developed world, that is 1 in 8,000, but in Nigeria is 1 in 66. So you see the stark difference. And then you have a country where it's ironic, because during the Abuja declaration, the declaration was done here in Abuja that said African governments should allocate 15% to health. But I think the highest we have ever allocated to health is about 7%. And in 2024, it was 5%. And so you see how we have a global crisis in our hands, and we are not paying attention, and we are not acting. And I have a theory, it's still a testing theory, that one of the reasons why the government is not paying attention to the women that are dying while populating the country in a time where population is declining around the world is because they are women. I am of the opinion that there's a misogynistic undertone to it, because if men were also dying while giving birth, or in that numbers, they would have most likely said they are not giving birth again, or they will have paid attention to it. That's my theory, part of my theory. But anyways, if we could redirect just 10% out of what we are doing, giving debt service to maternal health, it will make a lot of difference. So how do we ensure that this is made a priority, and what specific interventions would the government invest in to bring about this change? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I don't believe that. Okay, let me not go there first.
You are not a woman. You cannot believe.
Well, so I'm very happy to be here. Thank you very much for having me, and I'm really happy to see each and every one of us here. So, like it's been reiterated, while all Gen Z is here, even though some of us have gray hair. So I would like you to walk with me for a second. So this is Nigeria. Let me use another country. This is Bangladesh. All right. Just in 2026, Bangladesh will be removed from the index of the least developed countries. So that means, to a very large extent, if Bangladesh is not worse than Nigeria, they're on the same level with Nigeria. And then you can see that this same problem that exists in Nigeria exists in Bangladesh as well. But something that they have been able to do is that they have been able to fund something called a midwife scheme. So where you have people that are not essentially at the pinnacle of what you would call a medical professional, but they can help when women are giving birth. All right, and just that intervention, just that strategy alone has cut down maternal mortality at an alarming rate. All right, that same program was piloted in Kano here in Nigeria, and it worked. All right, so I think the problem here is not that there's a lack of what to do. I think the problem here is not that there is a lack of funds. All right, because the statistics mentioned 4%, 7%, 10%. If you take 10% of 100 billion, if you take 10% of 75 billion, you have 7.5 billion. Now in Nigeria, you have primary health care centers, secondary health care centers, tertiary health care centers. Primary health care centers are the ones that are mostly burdened with things like giving birth. Burden is not the right word, but responsibility rather. Giving birth, before I'm termed misogynistic. So giving birth, attending to diseases like malaria, those kind of things. And so when a woman is about to deliver, your first point of call should be a primary healthcare center. And because of these numbers, like it was rightly mentioned by the person giving the report, he said Nigeria has about 30,000 and you have only 70% of that 30,000 that is working. So for this problem, it is not a health pandemic, it's not a health epidemic, it is a gross mismanagement of funds for the 30,000, because it is the 30,000 primary healthcare centers that this question is directed to. All right, and so if you have more, I don't want to use the word oversight. I think we just need more stringent sanctions. Everything lies on sanctions that will be enforced. All right, because Nigeria is not devoid of policies. There are literally policies for almost everything that you can think of. Or our constitution is huge. It's very, very, very huge. And you have this act, you have this, you have this, you have this, you have this, you have that. But the problem here is that for all of these things that were mentioned, for all of these provisions that are given, there is nobody that is looking to cross the T's and dot the I's. All right? So interventions that will make sense. The money or the 10% of the budget, if implemented, all right, should make sure that that money goes into fixing the 70% of the 30,000 primary healthcare centers that are defunct. They are redundant. All right? From Imo to Owerri to Maiduguri to even some places in Lagos. If you go to Ajegunle, okay, sorry, I wanted to say here in Lagos, I forgot I'm in Abuja. If you go to Ajegunle in Lagos, there are primary healthcare centers that are defunct. They are not, you go inside and you see one nurse and she's sleeping and she's the only one there. If you bring 2, 3, 4, 5 women about to get delivered, she alone cannot handle it. The pilot program that works in Kano should be implemented in other places in the country. All right, if you could do a pilot program in a state like Kano and then it worked, when you take it to other areas and other contextual nuances and all of that, but I am of the opinion that if it worked in Kano, it will work every other place in Nigeria. All right, and so that strategy that has worked, a lot of things just need to be more decentralized. A lot of things just need to be more, a lot of people just need to take more grassroots responsibility. Like she said, okay, if you segue a little bit into security, you see that our federal security structure is rubbish, in all honesty. All right, and you see that in the southwest, you had states like Ekiti and all of that. They came up with things like Amotekun, all of that. It has its issues, but it worked to a certain extent. And so when we have pilot programs that are already working, what we should do is that we should build on those pilot programs. We should make sure that more of these girls go to school. We should make sure that more of these families are taught family planning, even though it might not necessarily go in line with what they believe, but let's make the effort. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I'll be taking the closing reflections now because we have just a little bit of time. And my question would go first to Mrs. Donat. Looking ahead 5 years from now, what would, if we have successfully moved the needle in our discussion today about the cost of debt and reducing our debt burden, what would it look like? Stanley already gave us a goal or a vision board of 70, 50, 30. I don't think that's achievable in 5 years, but where do you think we would have gotten to in the next 5 years between 70, 50, and 30?
If we work on reduction of debt, maybe 70 we would have reduced it by 30%. We can't reduce it by more than 30. I'm not even sure we can reduce it by up to 30 in 5 years. That's the honest truth. Because first of all, it is not achievable just by this panel. Do you understand? This has to get out. It has to get to the decision makers. Then it has to also change their mindset. It has to change the way they do things. They have to be more responsible. They have to be more accountable. And then we start seeing changes. So, like he mentioned, when they come for manifesto for elections, they talk of these things, but okay, after the elections, what do we do? How can we check them after? Is there any module? Is there anything we can do? So those are the things we have to even consider first before we talk of the percentages.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I'm going to praise now. What does success look like for Nigeria in terms of climate financing in the next 5 years?
I feel like 5 years is a short time, but it can also be a long time at the same time. You see some kind of videos or pictures on Instagram or on social media of how so much can be achieved in a year. If only there's effort, you can see how much can go on in a year. 5 years is a short time, but it's also a long time. It's a long time in the fact that when there's intentionality towards this particular sector of our country, climate change and climate financing and the likes, you will see that change will gradually come. You don't have to force it. As far as people are intentional about it and they are aware and they know that, okay, yes, this is a problem that is constantly faced by the grassroots and people from underserved communities or our communities in general, there will be a form of interest, and that interest will breed care, and that care will breed implementation of policies and inclusions in budgets that would make sure that, oh, there is a pathway and there is a, there's a space, rather. There's a space for climate change and climate financing and to finance climate projects and to help curb constant environmental problems that we'll continue to face. Climate change and the problems that comes with it continuously derails our country in various ways. Our economy, it affects our economy because it affects our farms, affects our crops, affects food productions and the likes. So it comes off from a form of care, like I said, going back to that first point, and also education. We need to educate our youth. The young people are, we always talk about how the future, tomorrow, we are the leaders of tomorrow. It gets to a point where that tomorrow is coming. I was hearing that when I was 5 years old. I'm a lot older now. That tomorrow is coming. So we should first of all educate our youths and put them in the right positions and the right places where they can actually impact these decision-making processes and continue to clamor for climate change and improvement in climate financing, and also how serious climate change and the idea of climate change should be for Nigeria. Because, for example, when an African country is not actually paid attention to, and like I said earlier, in a place where we are still dealing with basic problems with the likes of, like with his case, healthcare, education, youth empowerment, job opportunities, climate financing and climate change problems and the likes is the last of their thoughts. That's just the truth. But in a case where that is sorted, this also can also come in place, and in the next 5 years, a lot can be achieved, and we could see that our people's lives are being saved, less people are dying, and these issues continue to gradually get off the face of our problems. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Praise. I will hand over to, yes, Ayodeji. I'm still coming to you. Everybody's giving their reflections for 5 years regarding what you spoke around health. If by chance, hopefully, let's keep with renewed hope that that was a play, that we are able to turn our fortunes around. What would it look like in the next 5 years? What would success in terms of healthcare, health financing?
Okay, so what success will look like is, on a more basic and for the layest of terms, less people dying. All right, from mothers that are giving birth to people that die of malaria to people that die of diseases. Okay, what success will look like is that the average lifespan or the average life expectancy, that's the right word, of individuals in Nigeria is better. All right, so we don't see that people are dying at 35, people are dying at 40, people are dying at 45, and then we are all taking it and we're just all right. Okay, but there's something that I also believe is every budget, okay, should be proactive and reactive. All right. Proactive in the sense that, because when we had the webinar some weeks ago, I was also opportune to give a few thoughts as well. And this was something I said as well, that a budget that is totally reactive is a failed budget. A budget that is totally proactive is also a failed budget. Because when it comes to issues like climate change and even healthcare, to a large extent, nobody predicted COVID-19. Okay, you have some people that said, oh, they knew it was coming. But nobody actually predicted it. Okay, and then when you see that your government is met unprepared by a pandemic, by an epidemic, it shows that there is a lack of preparation, and that's the proactiveness. Okay, and then when it now finally comes, okay, and then there's now nothing to attend to that particular issue, you can see that there are no reactionary funds. All right, and so for issues like healthcare as well, it's the same thing. Okay, we should be able to make proactive forecast. Technology has done a lot. Technology has done a lot, from studying weather patterns to predicting the amount of people that fall sick, data, statistics everywhere. And then you have good organizations like the work that they do at Budget, giving you this data in easy to understand terms. All right, when we take and internalize all those data, what success will look like is that we are able to convert the data that we're seeing, we're able to convert the things that we're expecting, whether as sicknesses or whatever, and then there's an allocation in our budget to proactively defend the effect of that. And also for some things that are unseen, the budget can also react to sort of reduce the impact. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for that. To Damilola will take the last reflection, and the question will be also, what would it look like if Nigeria breaks the cycle of debt accumulation? And also, what would it look like when Nigeria starts using debt as a bridge and not as a burden?
All right, thank you very much. Just like she said, I don't know if we can completely reduce it that drastically, right? And 5 years, as much as it's a long time, is also a short time. We could literally make it go higher, but let's think of it in an optimistic view and say we have reduced it. Success will look like accountability for me. How well are they managing those debts? How well are they prioritizing human capital development and using those debts as a bridge to ensure that they improve on it, right? Another thing I think success would be not just accountability from governments, but the demand for accountability from us as citizens. And it falls on awareness and education. How well is the government translating our curriculums, translating our teachings to reflect the current realities of things? I can remember doing civic education and they are teaching me, oh, don't cross the road when the sign is this, don't do that. How has the curriculum translated to what it is now? At 15 years old, I don't think I ever knew what Nigeria's debt stock was. But the current Nigerian citizen, as a 15 years old, as a 12-year-old, should be able to say, oh, this is what the country's debt is. This is what fiscal governance should look like. This is what economics should be translated to. Don't just teach me demand and supply, right? So when we are equipped with those kinds of information from a young age, we're able to also now speak to issues when we get older. And you know how they keep saying the future, we are leaders of tomorrow, we are leaders of tomorrow. I want to believe that we are one of the oldest set of Gen Zs here. So Gen Zs are now old, right? And our future is already now. We are no longer looking at the tomorrow. Our future is already now. So we are the ones that are leaders that are going to demand those accountability. But if we lack the basic information, if we lack the basic knowledge, even from the foundation levels, there's little we can do, right? So for me, success will look like more awareness, more information circulating around. Success will also look like better accountability. Success will also look like better prioritization by the government. So I'll give an example. The state of states document we do our budgets, we look at fiscal sustainability for all the 36 states. And in the last 3, 4, 5 years, Kaduna State has accumulated debts, especially foreign debts, that is beyond their capacity, right? And when we look at sustainability, I think they are the 36th states when it comes to that debt sustainability ranking. And it is glaring. You know how they say consequences of your actions sometimes don't come immediately. This one is immediate. It is glaring how much prioritization has dwindled when it comes to health, education, agriculture, and other things. Another example I'll give is that last year, all of the states accumulated more than 50% increase in revenue because of federal allocations that increased and whatnot. But you find out that it did not necessarily translate into them increasing funding for education, necessarily translate into them increasing funding for health. It didn't even translate into them increasing their debt servicing so that they can clear off backlogs. In fact, you'll find out that some states had fiscal surpluses and they still borrowed within that year, right? So prioritization, understanding debt management is also something that is not just for us as students, it's not just for us as youth to understand and advocate. It's also something that we need to endeavor that there is capacity building within the structures. You have fiscal surplus. A state like Delta State had over 600 billion in surplus, but they still had debts, a lot of it. Education was not better prioritized and whatnot. So I think all of this translates into better success for me.
Thank you so much. Dami has given us a lot to chew on because when states started getting a lot of increased allocation because of the naira depreciation, that it also meant that because a lot of 60% of most states' debt is foreign backed, and that means that the value of their debt significantly increased. So that was also an excuse for them. We are getting more money, but we are paying more in debt. But then you have states like Damia said that had fiscal surplus and they are still not investing in the things that matter. They are not still paying back their debts and they are still not investing in things that matter. So these are the conversations that we should try to have. I know CSOs are trying. Everybody still has a lot of work to do. CSOs, media, everybody, youth. I say something that everybody around me knows about budgets and stuff. You have to know because I will talk about it. So it's something that we also in our immediate environments, places we can talk about it, make posts about it, write about it. Let's all contribute our voices as much as possible. And this is a government that we've seen that they hate public shaming. Anytime there's a public outcry and stuff, you see them react. So I think that is a tool that Nigerians need to utilize more because we've seen that this is a government that once everybody can come together and cry out about something, they take attention because they hate that bad PR. So that is something we can use to our advantage. Okay, let's say something. Just 30 seconds.
Okay, thank you. So just Lenin's voice said it. I remember I wanted to say it. So like she said, everybody around her knows about budgeting and budgets and all of that. I think that the best way to do it is every time you go to events, people always say, oh, talk about the issues, talk about the issues, talk about the issues. I think the best thing is for everybody to pick an issue to zero down on. And so when we have an issue that you want to zero down on, personally, okay, I know about climate change, I know about, budgeting, I know all of those things based on, what I'm doing and everything. But if you'd ask me personally, what's my own or where it's paining me the most is when it comes to our security architecture. In fact, what I did in my final year was about that. The papers I've written after that is about that. So if we cannot pick a certain part of the Nigerian government or what we are seeing that is really, really paining us, and we all now zero down on it, all of us in this room are a lot. Not to talk of the larger public. Somebody's talking about healthcare. Somebody's talking about education. Somebody's talking about security. Our voices together, okay, not when all of us gather in one place and saying the same thing. From our Twitter, from our Instagram, from our TikTok, that's POV. Oh, your boyfriend broke up with you. You can turn it to POV. Your local government chairman siphoned your funds. Things like that. All those kind of things will eventually lead to what we want. Thank you.
Thank you so much. On that round, please let's give everybody a round of applause. And that will be the end of the panel session. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Praise. Thank you, Damilola, Ayodeji, and Mrs. Donat. I think now we are getting to the end of the event. I know we are. Please, let's give a round of applause for ourselves. We've been great audience so far. Our next is a short video feature. Is our media, are they ready for us? Okay, great. So we'll be watching a video. And after that, we'll be having an interactive session. So I'm just going to take 5 people to either give comments or ask.
Nigeria has incredible
This
potential.
man has it in it for me because I rejected his previous offer. Okay. So please help me note the 5 people. Please raise your hand now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm sorry if I didn't pick you. I didn't see you. You know I'm short. Okay, let's do the video feature. Thank you.
Nigeria has incredible potential, a young population, abundant resources, and endless opportunities for growth. But we struggle to provide basic amenities. One of the reasons is that 60% of our revenue goes into servicing debt, leaving only 40% for everything else. This debt servicing is crippling our economy. I think it's time to demand transparency.
Hello, good afternoon, everybody. I don't think 1 minute will be enough. I'll just manage. My name is Ella Augustine, and I it's a comment, and I just want to thank the organizers of this program, first of all. It's worth attending, and I hope we all learned 1 or 2 things from it. My comment is going to be basic. We are talking about debt, sustainability, and all that, but we, as youth, we need to ask ourselves some salient questions. What's the effort you've put yourself into public awareness? Who have you spoken to? How deep does this thing even bother you? We have somebody from National Orientation Agency here. It's not enough to come here and sit down and just listen to people talk and go home and just internalize it. I always tell people that laws are made for middle class people. Because the poor man that doesn't have anything, you can't force him to obey any law, maybe pay tax or anything. He will say he's already on the ground. The rich man will look for a way to allow his lawyers and other people to deal with these things. I look at all of us as middle class people. If you are living here, how many people are you going to talk to about these issues? And we talk about sanctions and all that. If you place sanction, I will tell you that these big people will look for their way around it. The only thing they listen to is public shame, like somebody said here. We need to get to that point that you go to the social media and talk about your local government chairman, about your councillor, and how they are embezzling money. These people don't like these things, and that is the only way to correct them. We need to be involved. Me and my colleague were in Kenya last year, and we asked a very simple question, and it was like, we asked them, what will happen if you don't pass your budget at the right time? They all looked at themselves. They were surprised that we are asking such a question, and they said, the youth will kill us. They will come to this National Assembly and they will burn the whole place down. And I was shocked. And we are just talking about our own budget now. And this is December. And nobody is saying anything about it. The truth about it is, look at your age now. Add 8 years to your age, because that is the lifespan of any politician that will get into power. 4 years and another 4 years. Add 8 years. Ask yourself, do you want to be like this in the next 8 years or worst? So we need to talk to ourselves. We need to enlighten a lot of people. There are people in our rural community that don't know anything about this stuff we are talking about. We all have tools. We all have the social media to talk about things like this, about your counselor and how they are embezzling money. These people don't like these things, and that is the only way to matter on the long run. We need to be involved. So me and my colleague were in Kenya last year, and we asked them to tell you that we just need to shame this. It was like we asked them, what will happen if you don't pass your budget at the right time? They all looked at themselves. They were surprised that we are asking such a question. And they say, the youth will kill us. They will come to this National Assembly and they will burn the whole place down. And I was shocked. And we are just talking about our own budget now. And this is December. And nobody is saying anything about it. The truth about it is, look at your age now. Add 8 years to your age. Because that is the lifespan of any politician that will get into power. 4 years and another 4 years. Add 8 years. Ask yourself, do you want to be like this in the next 8 years or worse? So we need to talk to ourselves. We need to enlighten a lot of people. There are people in our rural community that don't know anything about this stuff we are talking about. We all have tools. We all have the social media to talk about the community level town, without knowledge, we can make also input into the budget, and then wait to see if it will be integrated, and the implementation is another thing. But at least you are involved in that process. So I feel like that's the summary. We asked them, what will happen if you don't pass your budget?
Thank you very much.
They all looked at themselves. They were surprised that we are asking such a question. And they say, the youth will kill us. They will come to this National Assembly and they will burn the whole place down. And I was shocked. And we are just talking about our own budget now. And this is December. And nobody is saying anything about it. The truth about it is, look at your age now. Add 8 years to your age. Because that is the lifespan of any politician that will get into power. 4 years and another 4 years. Add 8 years. Ask yourself, do you want to be like this in the next 8 years or worse? So we need to talk to ourselves. We need to enlighten a lot of people. There are people in our rural community that don't know anything about this stuff we are talking about. We all have tools. We all have social media to talk about your counselor and without knowledge, we can make also these people don't like the budget, and then wait to see if it will be integrated, and the implementation is not because but if you are involved in that process. So I feel like that's the summary. We asked them, what will happen if you don't pass the budget?
Thank you very much.
Find a way around it. Then I step aside and I look the other way. How do we make it a common issue that if we don't address this, it becomes how do we transfer now a debt that
this is December and nobody is saying anything about it. The truth about it is, look at your age now.
15 years of what is
Add 8 years to your age. Because that is the lifespan of any politician that will get into power. 4 years and another 4 years. Add 8 years. Ask yourself, do you want to be like this in the next 8 years or worse? So we need to talk to ourselves. We need to enlighten a lot of people. There are people in our rural community that if we don't know anything about this stuff we are talking about. We all have tools. We all have social media to talk about this.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you. This to think through.
All right. Thank you, CISD and HBS for putting this conversation together. I'm really interested in the climate finance bit of the conversation because on the face of it, climate finance should be a reparation tool to help vulnerable communities. As someone who works in the Niger Delta, some of the most impacted communities in Nigeria, it is really chilling to have to see some of this data because it means that the government is essentially being very responsible, abusing a tool that should essentially be to help vulnerable people and using that to stack up the debt burden on the country, and that is even reflected in the per capita debt stock. So it has ignited something, and I think maybe a part of our work, this was a blind spot for us, and I would like to say that I intend to take this forward to cascade it down at the level of our work. Then most importantly too, per the last panel, something these governors are doing these days is maybe as part of managing debt, what they do is they just tell you, and they're even celebrating it, that they are not taking on new debts. But that is not debt management on the face of it. And they're doing that carefully so that you don't interrogate the fiscal space of the state, and we have to account for when they onboard such evasive maneuvers around the conversation of debt.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. I think with the cap. Since we have an effective timekeeper now, we can take 2 more people. Okay, 1, 2. That's all.
All right.
Thanks.
So my time just starts now, right? So I also want to lend my voice to appreciate CISD for this. I think what came to fore for me is the issue of participatory budgeting, which is part of what we do at the Community Forum for Social Development. Because if most of these high debts are tied to projects, majorly infrastructure projects, it means that if, as a country and as youth, we place demand on our government officials to ensure that budgets proceed from bottom up rather than top-bottom approach, that local communities and grassroots could be the ones to determine what they want. Now, if in the name of that, loans are incurred, then there will be more accountability and transparency in the process of accomplishing those projects, because the communities who place demand for those projects will be able to see those projects rather than vague, meaningless, white elephant projects that we see being tied to most of these debt burdens that we are left to pay for in the future. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, sir. Okay. Yes.
I wanted to use a popular saying that is teaching time saves 9. Most of this conversation I've heard today about sensitization and awareness of some topics here, I've noticed a worrying trend of the overlooking of younger people in Nigeria. We don't talk to them about these things till they reach a certain age. And when they get to this certain age, you now start to try to teach them of these things that they should have known a lot younger. That is like a long step that would have been avoided if we started putting them on some of these things. So I think that is something we should also look into.
Thank you very much. Here's the last person.
I was not going to give another man mic. I wanted to
I'm a he for she, so maybe I can speak on behalf of women. Okay, so thank you very much for this opportunity, and then also to appreciate the organizers for bringing us on board to learn and also relearn some of those best practices to ensure that we hold our leaders accountable, more especially when it comes to issues like this. My name is Envo Emmanuel Okolo, and I'm from Nasarawa State, home of solid minerals. And then basically, when it comes to policies, Nigerians, we are good when it comes to formulations. And then when it comes to implementation, it's something that's actually giving us a lot of pace. And then, the future generations, what comes to them, what impacts them most, that is what has been giving me a lot of headache. And then my question basically is to the person from the Federal Fiscal Responsibility Commission. During the course of their presentation, they made mention that sometimes the state sign even without the knowledge of the Federal Fiscal Commission. So for me, if there are laws, if there are policies, and the state are not aligning or abiding by those laws, what does the Federal Fiscal Commission does in that regard? Do they just let go due to the bureaucracy, or what actions are they taking? Because this is giving me pains, because if we cannot take actions to confront these issues now, definitely we will not get things better, and things will continue to deteriorate. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Please, a round of applause for everyone for the contributions. Now we'll be watching the video. Yes, so, and...
Do you know that you are 607?
Please, let's just get ready. Thank you. Video, please.
Do you know that you are 671,000 naira in debt? Hey! I bet you did not know. Not because you borrowed, but because our nation did. And every naira counts against your future. According to the DMO, Nigeria's total debt as at June 30, 2025 has surpassed 152 trillion naira. We keep borrowing from home and abroad, promising jobs, hope and growth, But who is tracking where it all goes? From the World Bank to the China Exim Bank, billions are being borrowed. Yet, schools lack basics, hospitals cannot function well, and roads fade. So the question is, who borrows, from whom, and under what conditions? At the Center for Inclusive Social Development, we are asking the hard questions, using data to find the real answers. Through the Know the Debt campaign, we are mapping Nigeria's debt, tracking its use, and pushing for accountability that works for everyone, especially the youths. Because debt goes beyond the numbers. It's about classrooms that never got built, hospitals that never got built, and roads that were never started. We cannot afford silence anymore. We need to know what is borrowed, where it goes, and who benefits. In essence, we need transparency, we need accountability, and we need inclusion. Join the conversation, join the movement. The Know the Debt campaign is powered by the Center for Inclusive Social Development because the story of our debt is really the story of our future.
Nigeria has incredible potential, a young population, abundant resources, and endless opportunities for growth. But we struggle to provide basic amenities. One of the reasons is that 60% of our revenue goes into servicing debt, leaving only 40% for everything else. This debt servicing is crippling our economy. I think it's time to demand transparency and accountability.
We launched the Know the Debt project because silence costs more than our money. It costs our future. We're hosting something different, not another boring event where experts just talk, not another boring event where your questions are being dodged.
A physical event where we confront the facts with experts who actually answer the hard questions. And most importantly, we are giving you the tools to demand better, to track, to question, and to hold power accountable. Because here is what they are not telling you. Debt is not the problem. What we do with it is, and right now, we are doing it very wrong. This is your invitation to stop being a statistic and become a stakeholder. To stop asking, why is Nigeria like this? And start demanding, here's what we're going to do about it. Your future is not a spectator sport. Join the Debt and Development Forum. Because the next generation should not inherit our mistakes, they should inherit our courage to fix it.
And I declare this event closed.
Please, can we all stand up and say thank you, CISD, and clap? Please, wait, before we do it, we are going to capture it. Okay. 1, 2, ready, go. No, that doesn't sound like people that want to eat lunch. 1, 2, ready, go.